Thank you all. Welcome to the June 25th, 2026 meeting of the Concord Recreation Commission. We have a couple things on the agenda. Tonight we are joined by Representative from Barry Dunn, who's been working on our financial sustainability model project, and we look forward to hearing quite a bit about that. We have a couple of discussions about a commission chair role, our standing topics that we want to get to, and then an update on new White Pond parking, an annual announcement of the Maureen Taggart Award winner. Those are our agenda items.
Is that order?
Yes, I would beg your permission to take it slightly out of order and move up our Maureen Taggart Award winner, John Anderson, to the start of the meeting, so he doesn't have to sit around here all evening and listen to all of our exciting business. If everyone's okay with that. Please.
Yeah. Do we have any guests online?
Yes, Paul is on. I just made him a panelist, so he can pop in and speak if he wants.
Awesome. Do you want to pop off or so you can see us, or I'll just start talking?
I mean, he can see us because he's on the Zoom.
Okay.
And before we do that, I do want to formally welcome our newest recreation commissioner to the table.
Thank you.
Malia George is joining us this evening for the first time, recently appointed by the town manager to join us. So welcome. You have 4 of our commissioners here this evening. One is unable to make it. So Laura Stearns, Matt Boger, myself, and you are the 4 members. Daniel Hernandez is not able to join us this evening. On the phone is Paul Bone, who is our liaison to the select. The rest of the team you have met here this evening.
So Paul used to serve on this, so he's very well informed of the rec. So that's that. Do you mind taking just 2 seconds to tell us your background? I know literally nothing about you.
Oh, okay.
But that would be kind of.
I have lived in Concord for 8 years. I have an 11-year-old and a 13-year-old daughter. We are heavy rec users. We've done after school, summer camps, all the different programs. And I live very near White Pond. So, and I just think it's a great department and a great organization. We're very lucky to have it in this town, and I just wanted to contribute. So, but professionally, I'm an attorney. I work at Northeast Legal Aid. I represent low-income domestic violence survivors and family court. So, fun job. And it's just really delighted to be here as a tribute. So thank you.
Thank you. Welcome. I'm so glad you could be.
It was good to have a lawyer on there too. What's Thank you. That's good.
I can't interpret contracts, but if you need any advice about, what you could expect to get in a divorce, I'm happy.
Meg, if you need me to be a panelist, I can help you if you're running slides, but whatever's easiest.
All right, if everybody's,
Are you doing?
everybody's okay.
I'll add you as one, just in case you need help. Since I'm here.
I hope the basketball upstairs doesn't mess with our high-tech audio system that's going on. But if we're good for it, I would like to just jump item number 7 up the top and turn it over to Lee and honor our friend John.
I will take it. So I want to introduce the Maureen Taggart Award a little bit to you, and pardon me while I read. I just didn't want to miss anything. This is a really important award that's really awarded from the Recreation Commission on behalf of the staff. And I'm just going to turn because I happen to know here. But I'm presenting mostly for the audience here tonight. The Maureen Taggart Award is an annual community service award that's presented by the Recreation Commission to recognize outstanding volunteer service in Concord Carlisle area. It's been awarded since 1985 to a high school student who is a resident of Concord or Carlisle, and they demonstrate loving, giving spirit through voluntary service. The purpose and criteria is the show dedication and compassion to community service, make a meaningful impact through volunteer work, represent the values of Maureen Taggart herself. She very much embodied giving back to the community and supporting local causes. We have applicants apply throughout, what is it, like a 3-month period we did that, or 2 or 3 months? And we have selected the award winner as John Anderson, which we are delighted to give you this award this evening. And we do hope you're not camera shy, because we do hope to grab a picture with you. So I just want to say a couple more words, and if you'd like to say anything, you can. So I'll give you a couple seconds. But I do want to tell you that the Maureen Taggart Award actually doubled in gift size over the course of last year to this year, and I believe it's $500. Usually, is that ring a bell? It's $250 and it's $500.
It gets up to 1,500.
Yeah, it's significant, and the award's given to the student, and the student then gets to award some money to a cause of their choosing. So tonight, we're awarding John, and John gets to show his gratefulness by awarding and giving money to his favorite charity. So it's a really fantastic award. I do want to tell you about two things about Maureen Taggart. Maureen Taggart was a dedicated Concord Recreation Department employee. She was very passionate about community and volunteering, and the award was named in her honor to reflect her commitment and her service and her community engagement that she had while she was here. And I understand she worked here for a long period of time, 20 plus years. So it is a real honor to give you the award, and here it is.
Before John speaks, a lot of times that we get to review these things, I actually have known John for the majority of his life, and he is
Aw.
a really good kid. So I don't have to, like, for him to be a volunteer, this is not something that he did just during high school. This is something he's done throughout his age group, and it's a delight to have you here. He's a really honorable person, and he's the
Just
true
the right
epitome of a good Concord guy. He was the captain of the lacrosse team, but more important than that, his heart's huge. So it's honest. Very cool to see you.
So thank you. And would you like to talk a little bit about the volunteer work that you've done and who you
Yeah.
might be thinking about giving the award to as your?
Yeah,
Yeah.
so what I wrote about Concord Colorado Youth Lacrosse, which Matt Boger is one of my coaches, but I don't know, just gave a lot of charity and responsibility, teamwork, as well as that from youth lacrosse. So like over the past couple of years, I think since about 7th grade, I've just been helping out with youth lacrosse, going to tournaments and stuff, like practices. I don't know how many hours, like I think like 100 plus or something, but it's just, after school, like I'd go to Emerson, help him with practice. My little brother plays youth lacrosse, so I'd just be there to hang out with him and stuff like that. And then, just go, I think this winter I had to drive out to, I think Union Point in Weymouth. It was for like a tournament. I was coaching the 4th and 5th grade team,
Okay.
and it was like 20 degrees. The kids were freezing. I was freezing, but it was great. Like I just got to hang out with them. We were all sitting by the fire at the end of the night, and it was just great. And I just enjoy giving back. So I've gotten a lot from the program, and I think that's why I like to do it.
We love it. Thank you so much. Well, would you mind?
Sure, yeah.
Thank you,
Is that
John.
great?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, sure.
let's do it, Maggie. Would you mind taking a picture?
Well, you gotta do all the
Okay, I think
commissioners.
everybody- yeah. Let's
Look
get
at this.
behind the.
First night you did it.
Or in front of the booth. Yeah, let's do this.
Where's the
Come on, DJ, come on, Jess.
Oh, I do.
We have the.
Take it.
It's up to Maggie.
More than merry.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Do you want to take it?
That's
Very cool.
Copy. You will both take it.
Do we need a, you need a.
Oh, yeah. That's better, because I'm on my toes, and I don't want it to look like I'm on my toes.
Who's the tan?
Say 3, I don't know.
Oh, I just been taking it.
That's good.
2, 1.
Outstanding.
Thank you so much.
You guys.
I appreciate that.
Thank you so much. See you soon. That's how it was.
Awesome.
Thank you very much. Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
That's awesome.
Also, you'll know that to all of you guys.
All right. All right, my hair long very much.
I don't know, mine's a mess, it's sunroof weather, so I'm
Oh, is that
like,
right? Yeah.
I was tearing it up.
All right, thank you very much. Well, congratulations, John. So, well earned. Next, what we'd like to do is turn over to Lee and Jesse Myatt from Barry Dunn, which is the consulting firm that's been working on this financial services model for us.
You want to do the.
Oh, sorry, I apologize. Yes, skip that. Approval of our minutes from April 2026. which should be short, as I remember we had a 30-minute meeting and we
45 minutes.
got in and out of there because we had an event afterwards. So that, I don't know if anybody had any questions or comments.
I have just two quick questions. So Cushing Field, has that been determined yet that grabbed us? Like, 'cause I know with
Yes.
the land use work group that's something that.
It is ours to manage.
It is ours. To be-
Uh-huh.
Yeah, yeah. So if that were to be sold or something,
It
that
would
would
not be
taken-
ours to manage. Yeah, no, very well, yes. I don't think they're talking about selling it, but I may be out of the loop.
I don't
on
know.
Yeah, I
I
may be out of the
just
loop
did
on that.
all options are up there, but if that's.
Absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely.
So that's hard to me. And the other thing is, I was a little confused about open play and the idea of what people need as a rec commission, like people can come and use the court and reserving the court. And if there's ever free time, it's like no one can reserve. It's first come, first serve. I was a little.
Well, you know what, were you confused about the notes itself, or do you want to hear about the pickleball plan? I just want, for me, for the minutes, we could approve the minutes.
Sure,
if you're
yeah.
Clear about the minutes, but we are gonna do a presentation together, and we're gonna do probably several more to talk about pickleball, not just one. So you will get another
Exactly,
full
yeah.
shot at hearing the whole scope.
But yeah, what
Yeah.
about the minutes? It was just that.
Okay,
idea.
perfect.
Yeah, great.
Okay, perfect.
So I will second the minutes, approving the minutes.
All right, all those in favor?
I
Minutes approved.
thank you.
Thank you. All right, Lee and Jessica.
Yeah, so I'd like to introduce Josie Moy. We used to work together, and Brookline actually know each other. And funny enough, they won the bid for the contract to do this project for us. And he's a Barry Dunn now. And I'm just excited to introduce him tonight. We've done an exceptional amount of work, and he's done a fabulous job so far. And tonight we're more than halfway, I would say, well more, 75% perhaps, through our project. And this is our cost recovery project. It's very important to the recreation department, for sure. And more specifically, our revolving fund, as you know, is fee-based, and needs to be 100% successful without the use of the general fund, as well as BD. Swim and Fitness Center is an enterprise fund, and it also has to exist on its own without the help of the general fund, including all capital projects. All right, at Hunt, just to introduce for our new commissioner, at Hunt Recreation here in this building, this is on the revolving side. And on this building, we do have support with facility, essentially 4 walls and roof, and maybe some HVAC support from the general fund, because we are a town department and a town building. But because BD Swim and Fitness Center is an enterprise, we do not have that support. And that is why we carry the full scope of the capital projects. So you're going to have a lot of information from Jesse here in a few minutes, and I'll let him kick that off. I just thought that would be good to know ahead of time. All right, well, welcome, Jesse.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me, commissioners. I appreciate your time this afternoon. And as Lee alluded to, my name is Jesse Myatt. I'm a consultant with Barry Dunn, and I've had the pleasure of working with Lee and DJ and the entire project team over the last 4 or so months. As Lee alluded to, we're probably 2.5 months away from completion. Per the objective project schedule, though we have some flexibility in there should we need to take a deep dive in anything or look at some additional information as well. We're going to go through a few slides this evening at a fairly high level, but inclusive of a lot of detail. And certainly, if there are questions along the way, please feel free to interrupt me or jump in. We've structured the presentation essentially in 2 parts. We're going to give you a financial overview first, essentially what we call the science side of the project. And then we're going to move over into the second half, which is more along the lines of engagement and soliciting feedback from staff and the philosophy side of things, if you will. And I expect, though I'm not in the business of assigning the commission homework, Lee may ask you for some follow-up feedback when we get to that section, but more to come on that. We'll go ahead and get started. And like I said, there's an extreme amount of work and detail behind all of these very high-level slides. So if there are questions or follow-up is needed, we're more than happy to provide you any additional information after the meeting here this evening. And Maggie's going to help me with the slides. We can go to that next slide. Just before we get into it, I just want to frame our analysis for the commission. And generally, when we prepare a cost of service analysis and develop a financial sustainability model, we look at a number of fiscal years. We generally like to look at anywhere from about 7 to 9 fiscal years. And that's looking back usually 2 or 3 fiscal years to understand levels of service, past practice of service delivery, and how that equated into revenue generated and expenses incurred to deliver those services. We then take a look at your current budget year, which happens to be budget fiscal 26 for 3 or 4 more days. So we'll have essentially a good full fiscal year to look at for our present view, see how that's trending with things in the past. And then most importantly, why our work is here and what we want to set you all up with is looking towards the future, that forecast, if you will, from a financial perspective of really setting the department on the strategic trajectory that it needs to be based on its priorities for the next 4 or 5 fiscal years. And really providing the opportunity to have some scenarios to choose from to develop the fiscal resources to be able to do so. So with that, the next slide here. And we've also structured the financial section into 2 subparts as well. As Lee alluded to, we'll start on the revolving fund side of things, and then we'll move over to BD. With the revolving fund being the revolving fund, we have to keep those revenues and expenses separate from an accounting standpoint. And with BD being an enterprise fund, the same framework applies of where things can't cross over. What we're seeing here is looking back at those past years that I just referred to, of starting to see where the revolving fund was at in fiscal 24 and fiscal 25. We like to look at these because they're closed fiscal years from an accounting perspective. That way the numbers aren't going to change, right? They're not moving anymore. Whereas fiscal 26 will still move for most likely another 6 or 8 weeks. And looking at the revolving fund, we drilled down into 8 core service areas, and you can kind of see those over there on that left-hand side of the slide. And we've taken a deep dive into each of those individual 8 core service areas. And while the commission will have that detail eventually, in the interest of time and just introduction here for this evening, we won't take a deep dive into each of those 8. But in looking at that and rolling up at the revolving fund level, we can see that green and that blue box kind of in the middle of the slide is the revolving fund cost recovery level, inclusive of administration for fiscal 24 and 25. In that cost recovery level, that percentage, it demonstrates the percentage of expenses recovered by way of current fees and charges. So that 104.5% and that 102% means that the revolving fund recovered slightly more than the expenses incurred to provide services for that fiscal year. That's a great thing. That's by design. And as Lee alluded to, the revolving fund is designed to be self-sustaining and then some a little bit to maintain a fund balance, not only for capital needs and other needs, but to ensure business and service continuity as well. We want to be able to have that reserve, if you will, if we run into some hard times for whatever reason, or something comes up just out of the blue that we need to utilize those funds for.
It's a great review. Thank you so much. Should it be more consistent? So it seems like we dropped from that year from 104 to 102.
Yeah.
Do you want to see something more consistent on that, or is that
consistent within a range, Commissioner? That's a great point. And it's always going to vary a little bit because revenues are cyclical. Expenses incurred tend to vary year to year. We can see some variation based on the expense side. For instance, perhaps the department is carrying a vacancy for the year or something. And so while that expense is included in the budget, we don't actually incur that expense, which kind of boosts cost recovery. So there's a little bit of an accounting adjustment always in the variation, but overall, we like to see a consistency at least an overage of 5 to 10%, again, to maintain that fund balance. But you will see variation year to year, and we'll see a longer line, and that will present a picture of that variation here in a second. One important thing to point out is those bottom blue boxes there. And so the revolving fund sitting on its own is self-sustaining for those couple of past fiscal years. When we add in those other direct charges that are assessed from the town-wide perspective at the end of a fiscal year, you can see that pushes the fund below 100% cost recovery. And those are charges that, think of them as internal support charges, your HR expenses, your town management expenses, IT IT expenses, things of that nature. There's a little bit more that goes into that, but generally that's what that other indirect is there. And so when we look back at that, the revolving fund was slightly less in having to rely on fund balance for those past fiscal years because of those indirect charges.
Sorry, and so with administration in that box, that means internal administration within the
For the
recreation
department,
department,
yes.
not town. administration.
Right. And that other indirect is outside of the department.
It's
Yes.
the new
absolutely.
indirect charges that, you know,
Yep.
someone changed to the last minutes.
And so that essentially sets our baseline. And while not critical, we do often see years that are lower than 100% cost recovery. That's not unique to you all here in Concord, but we don't want to see a continued downward trajectory of that. We'll want to correct that downward trajectory, if in fact that is the case. Now, if we go to that next slide, we'll kind of get into the present, and we'll essentially see where we're going based on all of our assumptions that we've baked into our analysis thus far. You'll see again that 99 and that 97 that we just saw for fiscal 24 and 25 with those indirects. Fiscal 26, while very much completion from a calendar standpoint, we'll still see some movement, but we are expecting that we might come in a little higher than overall expenses for fiscal 26. DJ and I will continue to massage some things until the accounting adjustments get done. But for all intents and purposes, fiscal 26 is essentially looking pretty good. Where we start to see the downfall is that kind of that orangish line, and I want to focus the commission there first, is that downward trajectory of what we will call the status quo. And we'll start to see expenses outweigh revenues year to year. No surprise to everybody here, we're seeing a macroeconomic expense environment that is just unprecedented in many ways. Revenues are still increasing organically from a department perspective. It's not as if it's poor management or fiscal elements are off track. It's just the expense side is outpacing revenues much quicker than organic revenue growth. And so should we do nothing at the moment, we will see that continued downward trajectory over the next 3 or 4 fiscal years of less than 100% cost recovery. And while we can weather kind of 1 or 2 fiscal years of cost recovery, we do want to start to look at how we might change that if we're looking at that sustained downward trajectory, because every one of those less than 100% cost recovery fiscal years dips into fund balance to balance it out. We have to have a balanced budget at the end of the year.
May I ask what the reserves are the Concord Work is carrying, or where do we take that out?
Yes, that's it. And as of right now, I don't have the exact numbers, and we'll have a recalculation at 26, but I think the revolving fund is carrying about 4 million or so.
It was.
It
but we
was.
Spent it, so
Yes.
I'd rather hold that
Yeah.
until the next presentation.
Yeah, we
I
might,
need to
we'll
do
have some reserve,
We had a-
calculations.
We did have a major discussion over the last year, sort of backed into it because of a project that we were working on where there was some significant
It was 2
amount of
million.
excess.
2 million.
It was 2, and then the
Significant amount of excess where we worked with the town manager's office to figure out what our target should be,
Mhm.
which I can't remember.
That's what I mean. I'd rather save
what
it.
we-
This
yeah,
was a
we've
good
done
one
some
for a future meeting.
Yeah.
Significant look at that, what that target balance should be and why, and we'll come back to that.
But it did start with 2 in the revolving fund, 4 on the BD swim and fitness side. That's the enterprise fund, but 2 on the revolving side.
Okay.
So quick question.
Yep.
Oh, sorry. No, go ahead.
What's driving the increase expected for this year? Because that's the outlier, like it's sort of.
Absolutely, you kind of fall off that cliff. And so the budget numbers for 27 see an expense side of increases, and it's generally driven on the personnel side of things. And so increases just for position additions, I believe, and then just increases in overall benefit expenditures and
Yeah.
things of that nature, coupled with those inflationary metrics that are baked in there as well.
25 to 26, what got better?
25.
In the 5.
Oh.
Last year, like
Yeah.
that's a pretty big increase.
Yeah, absolutely. And so revenues are trending about even as where they were in the last fiscal years. Expenses are coming in a little lower. So good expense side management for 26, which is why we're expecting a bit of an overage there on the revenue side of things. And so that's another element that we will talk a little bit about in that 104 or whatever it ends up being when it's all said and done is not necessarily attributable to all sorts of excess revenue. It's more controlled on the expense side, which is allowing us to. Therefore, if we do realize all of those expenditures going forward as forecasted out in those fiscal years, that's our status quo orange line. And so we want to certainly develop some scenarios to change that downward trajectory. Not only to ensure business and service continuity, but again, to get the revolving fund self-sustaining again.
It's great to look at the elbows. Thank you. The green and the orange, that's assuming that there's no additions or subtractions for what we performed, right? That's measuring what we have now, and if we wanted to maybe lose something, that would change something, or if we wanted to add another thing, that would change stuff.
you're
Do we have
exactly right.
Anything that we're thinking about adding, or we're not even adding or subtracting?
Right now, we're thinking, we did add a job. I don't know if you remember, if you recall that, we did add a position, a full-time position for 27 on both the revolving fund and the enterprise fund. We're not sure if we can execute that because of the new indirect charges. So I'll say for now, we're holding steady
Yeah.
until we have the final project. The goal is the financial sustainability model. Once we have the model, then we know what we have to look at. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And then we'll make decisions together.
And back to your question about the downward trend there as well, as Lee did mention, there is a substantial increase in those townwide indirect charges that are being assessed to the fund, and that continuation has been carried out as well. So certainly more significant than that fiscal 24 and fiscal 25 that
I
we're
was
looking at.
confused the indirect, because you said like things like HR. Doesn't the town take care of our HR? We have our own HR? Like,
No, but
I don't
this
think they
is
bill
the
us, they
structure
bill
of
us
HR.
back.
oh, they
Yeah,
bill
they-
us.
Yeah.
Well, it's
every-
not a bill, it's more just that you recreation and the revolving account, the enterprise accounts benefit from the services of HR, just like they benefit from the services of IT, the accounting department, things like the work that Public Works does on the fields, mowing, maintenance, all those things, facilities for this building.
Yes, sir.
Procurement, it's basically any department that aids any departments that are funded with enterprise or revolving. So same thing, CMLP pays the same indirects. The water sewer division is an enterprise fund, they pay towards all of those. So it's not unique to the rec and beagle funds, it's any enterprise or revolving account.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. And so our work now has been centered on developing those scenarios to correct that downward trajectory. And as of right now, you'll see we've got about a 10% fee increase forecasted as necessary to essentially maintain that past performance and status quo to get that revolving fund back up into that 104, 106% cost recovery level. That funds and sustains operations and gives us a little padding in that fund balance for all of the things that we discussed prior. Now, it won't be a blanket 10% fee increase across everything. Some things will probably end up being a little higher and some things will probably end up being a little lower. And that will be informed by the second half of the presentation and feedback that we're working on now as far as benefit categories and cost recovery categories for activities, programs, and services. So more to come on that. We can go to that next slide there. So before we leave the revolving fund, I just wanted to kind of point out, and I know there's a lot of numbers there. We kind of went through the middle columns there of cost recovery, but what will also inform kind of where we will assess the impact of fee increases is when we look at where the majority of revenue comes from for those core program areas for the revolving fund. And you can see that school year program area, brings in about 45% of total annual revenue. And so that's an area where we would look at to say that perhaps a smaller adjustment there is going to have a much bigger impact than an adjustment in the White Pond area.
That includes carousel and school,
Yes.
That is correct.
includes all the childcare
Yep.
places.
Yes.
Yes, that does.
Yeah, I mean,
We're
I'd
not-
love to see this slide on a more granular basis, so you could actually see what programs are built into each one of these.
Yep.
Because I think it's really important to understand when we're looking at this. And if I understand correctly, when you say 132%, it's bringing in more than.
It carries the rest of the
Yeah,
area.
yeah.
It carries the rest of the area.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's by design, and we'll get to that conversation in the second half in that this kind of bucket of programs, if you will, is generally designed to be self-sustaining and then some because of the benefit it provides to the recipient of the service versus what we would characterize as more of a community benefit that would be supported by other things that bring in a little bit more.
So that's your benefit.
That's our second half and kind of the work that we're doing now. Absolutely. But just wanted to give kind of the commission an overview of where the vast majority of revenue comes from. Again, summer camps and programs is another one of those areas that is generally by design, not unique to you all, to be high cost recovery because it is a core revenue generator. And then we see kind of things trail. And this indication is not an indication of quality or performance or importance. This is just the financial objective analysis of things that allows us to kind of make some scenario developments and some fee assessments. So certainly nothing with regards to subjective take on.
And so
these
just to
elements.
follow up, so sports clinics makes 40% more than it's actually costs to run it. So like that's bringing in more money than it's.
Correct. Correct. Yep, that's exactly what that's saying there, and it's a smaller portion of
And
the
summer
overall.
camps are a loss.
Yeah,
It's
General,
it's daylighting what are effective subsidies not across the board, which is an important conversation for us to
But
have.
then you also weigh how much benefit, like, do we want to subsidize this because
Correct.
it's a benefit to the community
Right.
versus.
Exactly.
Right. And, municipal, just anecdotally, municipal recreation services generally, there are 10 things you do on an annual basis that keep the lights on for the other 200 that you do. And that's just the nature of services at the municipal level for recreation, and that's not unique to you all. We can point to that.
Great though, to see this slide with like the details of what programs are built into each of these.
Yep, absolutely, and we have that,
Great.
and we'll be soliciting feedback on some from you on some of that. Well, Lee will be asking.
Yeah, I will.
We can go to that.
At a later time.
Maggie. And so before we leave the revolving, I just want to characterize of what we kind of put some of our percentages into a dollar perspective. And so if you'll recall that green line, to get us back up and change that downward trajectory, we'll be looking at those fee increases and perhaps some other adjustments, but we'll be targeting about $500,000 of additional annual revenue generation in the next 3 to 4 years. By the time we get to fiscal 29 and fiscal 30, we'll want to be approaching that target to keep pace with the expenditure increases outlined. That's not to say this is not 500,000 year over year every year for the next. This is kind of a gradual ramp up of what we would want to see in order to keep pace with that. And certainly, we're offering that as a suggestion. It's up to everybody to make the decision of that. And you can see we've kind of given you the three-legged stool here of those three choices. If you wanted to take a lesser aggressive approach, you can kind of see we might put a Band-Aid on things for the next couple of fiscal years, but we're going to trail off in those out years of 29 and 30 and essentially be back down. With a 5% increase, we could get 300 to 350,000, or, as we would say, rip the Band-Aid most aggressive. If we wanted to just come out of the gate and change everything, we could look at a greater fee increase and change the trajectory faster. We certainly, don't recommend something that's going to create financial barriers to entry for the people that rely on your services, your community. So, that middle of the road scenario is kind of, it gets you where you need to be from a fiscal perspective, but also minimizes the impact to the user of the service.
This is a great overall view, but it would be neat to see this is what it costs with a 5%. This is what it would cost. If it's like $35 to $50,
Yep.
50 like that. I'm not sure if you already had that, but it'd be good to eyeball on what's kind of reasonable.
Absolutely, and that's the work that's going to round out the project, is developing those updated, as we call updated fee schedules. But we're kind of categorizing some things now and still soliciting a little bit more input, and then we can make those determinations on whether what it looks like, 35 to 40 or 35 to 45, whatever it ends up being.
And just to be clear, this isn't a 5% for each year. This is 5%, and then that 5% continuing for the 5 years, right?
Correct. This would be a one-time adjustment here. If we were to start, on July 1, it would be a one-time adjustment. Or once we get it all said and done, we can talk about the strategization of perhaps going a 5 and a 5. Of smoothing it out a little bit, something of that nature. There's no right or wrong way to do it. It's what becomes palatable again, I think, from the litmus test of impact to the community.
I've got just Paul Bohm is on the line. He's our select board liaison. Has a question.
Yeah,
Paul.
Yeah, hi there. So your green line, sort of the on the previous slide, that does not include indirect charges, right?
That would be inclusive of the indirect charges. Yes. So
It does include it, Paul.
That's a fully loaded that green line.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, good. That wasn't clear. Second question, does this analysis assume level service? In other words, no expansion of programs or, so this is a level service program?
Yes.
Correct.
Yes.
Is there an analysis that includes increased services, whether that's in any of these categories, schools, et cetera, and what that would do to the analysis?
Yeah.
I'll take that, Paul. I would say that we have not done that analysis because we are still in the process of really analyzing what's happening right now. And then we'll come back together to this group to determine fees. And that's when I think the fruitful future expenses will have a lot more knowledge at that point to know what we can afford to do within the fund.
Yeah, and you may be limited to increased services based on staff and facilities and other things. I'm just,
Absolutely.
yeah, okay, thank you.
This is a baseline exercise.
Right, thank you.
Back a slide, I just wanted to ask actual versus budget. What's the difference? Like, this is the way your projected budget is for the next year, and what is that based?
Yeah, actual is that means that we're all said and done. Those
Yeah.
numbers that's the way the numbers came in. The budget is actually what would be the percentages if we realize the revenue adopted in the budget and the expenses expended in the
So
budget.
you're anticipating on getting less money from White Pond, less money from general rec programs.
The way it was budgeted, that's it. And generally, it's budgeted a little bit more conservatively. And back to kind of the opening marks, since we're 3 or 4 days away from the fiscal year, we're going to be updating those fiscals. And so essentially fiscal 26 will become an actual.
Okay.
And then we'll have those finals again, but we've just got the budget numbers plugged in there
That's
right
what
now.
is expected is that some of these
Yep.
are gonna go down in terms of revenues.
Yes, and if you go back to just right there, you'll see that 100, or we're actually, projecting that fiscal 26 is going to come in a
26
little
will
better
look
than
good.
budget. A little better than budget, so a positive for fiscal 26.
But some things are gonna go up,
Yep,
like. All of these, so summer camps, you're looking to get more money.
you're gonna see,
Yeah.
you're gonna see probably a variation in all.
When do we close the fiscal year?
June 30th.
No, when is the accounting? I mean, that's the end of the fiscal year.
But that's what he was
What's
talking about. The accounting will
Two-
take us 6 weeks
Depending
for
on the
us to
count,
visually
yeah.
see where we're
Final,
at.
final
They'll
close in a couple
probably,
of months.
accountant will probably close the books, I mean, in a perfect world, by August 31st, but it might be earlier into September. Jennifer's running type ship over there.
So by this fall, we should be able to.
Yeah.
By the fall, we can update those to actual.
But
Yeah, I'm just
yeah.
trying to understand where we're looking, that we're gonna get more money, where we're looking, that we're gonna get.
We're not quite there yet, but yeah, well, this is we're at the kind of beginning of this project really, and the first time we've done it. So it's
I love
fascinating and I'm so glad you're here and interested. I can already tell.
Like, I feel
love
like
it.
this is like my dream is to come into the first day of the commission and to get this sort of snapshot view, because this is one
We
of
did
my
it just for
biggest.
you.
Yeah.
Thank you so
Yeah,
much.
it's kind
But I mean, this is, I really feel like this is such a
so.
good, like when you're raising concerns about kind of affordability for our community and what is really like of a value to our community where we could get more revenues. I mean, this is exactly where you have to start is with the baseline. So well
Yeah,
done.
I'm sorry.
This is
And
great.
if we have to raise fees, we
Exactly.
can explain and justify why, rather than just be like, we feel like raising
Exactly.
fees. 'cause
This is a
people won't
really
understand.
great exercise.
Are other departments doing something like this? And again, you came in, this, I haven't seen this before too. This is a really.
I think this is the first time this has been done in ever.
I've never heard of anyone else doing it, certainly not in recreation, but it
Okay,
needs to
yeah.
be done and I'm happy that you're.
But it's
interested.
answering
Yeah.
questions that I think a lot of community members have. So
Absolutely.
it's really nice to hear this. Sorry.
No, questions are great. Absolutely. There's a lot of information being thrown out tonight. So questions are fantastic. We can move on to the next. I think we'll get into BD now. Coincidentally, we've essentially got 8 core services areas outlined for BD as well. And we're taking the same approach on the analysis of establishing those cost recovery baselines and then seeing what the delta might be and where we might need to go to correct some things. I will say that BD is a little bit more unique in that it's an enterprise fund. And so that just changes slightly same idea as the revolving fund, but from an accounting standpoint, a little bit more rigid in that it needs to be self-sustaining, no ifs, ands, or buts. About it. And then as Lee alluded to in her opening remarks, capital is also inclusive of the environment on the expense side of the enterprise fund as well. So all the more reason to keep that fund balance healthy, not only for programmed capital, but again, those out of the blue things, emergencies.
The roof
so forth.
that we're doing right now.
Yeah, exactly. And so from a cost recovery perspective, we'll see a little bit more of an elevated percentage because again, it's an enterprise fund and that's by design. So that's a good thing. And looking at, again, at fiscal 24 and 25, we can see kind of the direct costs with just administration from the department included. BD's firing on all cylinders. That's exactly where we would want to see it be. That 120, 130% cost recovery, everything A plus that. When we add in those other indirects, we can see it push it down. The downward push isn't so severe as the revolving fund. That's just because the numbers are a little higher. But nonetheless, those other indirects are still a significant portion of the expenses incurred. And it is pushing that overall cost recovery down. So we'll kind of look at our longer term view here, much like we did the revolving fund on the next slide. And we can see that good year, and then we can kind of see that cliff starting to happen. While fiscal 26 is still projected to come in at a little better than full cost recovery, we are seeing again that expense side just outpacing revenues much quicker. You can see that revenues are a little bit projected to be a little bit flatter at BD, just because of the nature of the service delivery and the services that are provided. Certainly not a negative in any way, shape, or form. It's just the way the math works out. With that expense side, and you can see, I know there's a lot of numbers at the bottom, but we're projecting probably over a 30% expense increase over the next 3, 4, 5 fiscal years, and certainly revenues can't keep pace with that just with organic revenue growth, or even to the comments online about even adding probably programming wouldn't keep pace with that expenditure increase without bringing up the fee values of some of the current services that are provided. And so that orange line once again pushes us down into that 90s and even probably high 80s if we let it go kind of status quo without touching it. And while from a percentage standpoint, 90s, high 80s still seems fantastic, that is critical areas for a fund that needs to be self-sustaining. That 10% delta is just devastating, and certainly will deplete fund balance quite quickly should nothing be done. And that's just from a structural operation, and that's inclusive of the capital needs baked in there as well. What we'd want to do is push that back up, and it'll be a little bit longer, probably term steeper climb to get BD back, upwards of 130, 140% cost recovery. But what we've got baked in there now is, again, kind of that 10% fee increase scenario. We can massage it a little bit each way. And that's more of a kind of a maintenance mode at the moment to kind of get some capital caught back up, not create a financial barrier to entry, but also get it back up to that 100% level. And we might expect that some levers can be pulled on the expense side should it need to get to, towards the end of a fiscal year, something of that nature, to perhaps bump that cost recovery back up. So.
And when you're talking about increased expenses, you're talking energy, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Facilities.
Yes.
Like those are the
Personnel, non-personnel,
Yes.
Okay.
again, those
Meeting
indirect.
positions, yes.
Yeah. Every line item in the budget that it takes to operate the facility over the course.
And where are the biggest increased expenses?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead, please.
What's that?
Water.
Yeah, water, gas.
Village.
Yeah, and you know what I'm really interested in doing now is meeting with you and going through the entire budget.
Okay.
And I literally think I will. I think it'd be great to do as an exercise, and I'm gonna meet you anyway. But it's very specific. I could break it down, but yeah, it's all of our electric, gas, mostly utilities. It really is.
And that's,
Jenny, this.
If we're gonna keep for something as big as BD, that's a
Yeah.
It's
big.
massive and significant. We have 4 pools.
Yeah.
right?
Those are an expensive.
So energy, so when you talk about economy writ large,
Yeah.
you're talking about expense.
That's the biggest.
It equates quite directly to all of the areas that we're seeing increases in our own personal.
Exactly.
It's not
good
much
way to
different
say it.
there. Yes.
What do you mean by water? I mean, once you buy the water?
Backwashing, different chemicals that we have to take care of, but a lot of backwashing that we do,
Showering.
showers, hot water.
Everyone's showering, right? Everyone's showering before and after, right? So.
Which we all do.
Right.
Yeah, you're supposed to, right? Oh, interesting.
Could you say a little bit more about the difference between the revolving fund and the enterprise fund and what that means in terms of the target cost recovery ratio? Like when we were talking about the revolving fund, I was thinking 100 is good, what we should be shooting for. But for this, is it more than 100 because of the
Absolutely.
capital?
It has to be.
Yes.
Because of
It has
capital
to be.
expenses.
So what should it be?
That's a policy decision. What there's no rule or magic number from an accounting law standpoint. It should be what it needs to be to sustain your operations. I know that's an unfair answer, but generally, again, kind of anecdotally, we want to see an enterprise fund probably upwards of that 115 to 1.
Okay, thank you.
And we can point to examples across other enterprise fund environments. Mentioned water, we're all familiar with water funds, sewer enterprise.
It's an
funds of that
important
nature.
time to be asking that question, because the BD Center is now 20 years old. You start to look at major capital expenses in a facility like that. After 20 years, that's when you begin to see systems that need major expenses start to come online. Boilers, all those. All of that stuff has to be covered within this enterprise fund. So we've been going through an exercise of identifying a lot of those. again, kind of on a backdoor was a conversation about expanding the beauty center, which we'll talk about later. That has forced us to look at a bunch of issues about operations and maintenance and ongoing capital costs that we're gonna have. But 20 years is when you start to see those expenses coming in. So we need to get this conversation and understand it, or we're gonna dig ourselves in a deeper hole if we're not careful.
Absolutely. And this might be one of those areas that, is discussed. And again, from an objective standpoint of Barry Dunn, we don't have an agenda on what we need to see for a fee increase for you all. It's what you all feel is correct for you. We'll give you the foundation and the numbers to pick the scenario, but you might even think we've got kind of that baseline scenario to kind of correct the trajectory. If we want to think about maybe a little bit of a steeper increase to start to fund some of those, what we would consider future capital needs as inevitable. Certainly those are scenarios to be considered in your policy direction there.
You're making a decision about what the expenses are going to be based on your best projections.
Absolutely. Yes. Yep.
So,
And
we may not be looking at the scenario we think we are, but
Sure.
it's not. Okay.
sure. And we've got the town assumptions baked in here. So we work with whether it's HR and kind of personnel projections, and then we've got our what I keep considering our macroeconomic projections that we point to, and we generally pull things from the our federal sources that we subscribe to, whether it's the Bureau of Labor Statistics, things of that nature, inflationary metrics. And again, we're just seeing those increases at levels that we haven't seen in past years.
But how aggressive are your expenses?
They're on the, I wouldn't say they're like the most aggressive. I would say they're slightly on the other side of middle of the road.
Okay.
Just because, even when we started this 4 months ago, we've seen increases in some of the metrics that we've used in previous studies. So things are changing just from previously, we might see a gradual change over 18 to 24 months of some things move around. We're seeing just spikes and ups and downs every 4 months or so across the board.
Hope for the best, but expect for them.
Right. And I think we'd be remiss if we think that things are probably going to get cheaper before they get more expensive.
So taking Phil's question into play, did you assess that this is 20 years? We are like the boiler, if that hasn't been replaced, that's going to have to be replaced within 5 or 10 years. Is that baked into your cost as well?
If we went out that far, it would be. So your kind of your run of the mill capital costs right now are baked in for the next 5 or 6 years. So your program capital is in. Absolutely.
We did, in other words, we did send our capital plan to him.
Yeah.
It has included it. That's what.
Paul has a question online.
Yeah, thanks. The third leg of the stool here is the fund balances. These are revenues and expenses. Finance Committee has set target fund balances. Is that correct? Can you speak to those? Are we at that target level and maintaining that fund balance, or we need to increase?
I'll answer that. Paul, I'll take that one. We are at the target, and I would have to go back to an email from Jennifer to tell you what specific number that is, but I will tell you comfortably that we are.
For both Beanie
Yes,
and revolving?
for both.
Okay, that's important. Thank you.
Yes, we are currently, yes.
Great, thank you.
If we go to that next slide, you can just see, I just want to kind of translate this over into dollars. We've been talking a lot about percentages. And so with BD, that middle of the road scenario, what you'll recall the revolving fund, we were targeting about $500,000 of additional revenue generation. We'll want to see about $400,000 of additional annual revenue generation by the time we get out to 29 and 30 to kind of get that green line scenario realized. So that will certainly translate into fee increases. That's nothing that can be achieved by organic program growth or things of that nature.
Don't we want things over 100%? I'm sorry, I'm just trying to.
Yep, absolutely. And so this is you've got kind of a big delta to come out of, and so that middle of the road kind of gets you what we would call kind of buy some time, but we might want to look a little bit. You can consider that most aggressive, but that's going to be on the fee increase side of things a much steeper fee increase. Certainly there. And what we also want to do is we can always pick a fee increase number, right? We can go up as high as we want to, but obviously at some point it's going to trail off and have the negative effect of folks not being able to participate in your programs or just choosing not to at that point. And then that snowball effect has the opposite effect on revenue. You're not generating any revenue at all, despite raising your fees. And so that middle of the road tends to be that sweet spot. And, this doesn't happen overnight. This is a 4 or 5 fiscal year plan of kind of just changing the trajectory, monitoring it, and perhaps going through this exercise in a deep dive again in 3, 4, or 5 years to kind of course correct if needed.
As part of your analysis, are you going to be looking at kind of the income levels of different age groups and how that's going to map on to like where we're increasing things?
That's a little beyond our scope and kind of outside, and it gets a little assumptive to do that. But nonetheless, a good point. But we won't be considering that as part of our analysis here. It's certainly more of an objective, inward-looking exercise for our project here.
The good and the bad thing is we're not even within the town. There's other country clubs and other things that people can choose from.
With certain income levels.
Yeah, well, I mean, but we have competition, right? So we have to figure out what's attractive to us, what age group and what we're all.
Yeah, absolutely. And what's the mission of the department here for recreation services?
Yeah.
And are you fulfilling that? There's nothing wrong with achieving that either. But certainly we have a lot of detail behind this, and as Leah alluded to, we'll come back with some detail in the core services after we kind of go through the next exercise here. Go to that next slide. Before I kind of leave the financials, I'll just stop if there's any other questions, and we'll get into a little bit of a lighter conversation here to round things out.
I will comment. I think it's incredibly helpful to do this, and I applaud Lee for championing this and getting it done. It needed to be done.
Yep.
And I applaud you for doing that, making us look at it, because
I agree.
you know,
It needs to be done.
the long-term sustainability of our programs as they are now is critical. Looking at what effectively we subsidize and why we do that is important. And then making decisions about how we want to see it look in the future. That's the exciting stuff we should be talking about. And we can't really have those conversations without baseline data.
Exactly.
Well, that's the problem, is we have them without this data, and then no one really knows what you're talking about, and people make assumptions, and so this will be, this fall, when the numbers come in and you finish this conversation, it'll set the table for us to have some really important and good conversations. So this is terrific.
Absolutely.
This literally is one of the best meetings that we've had. It's very informative. But you still have another
Yeah, so
process
he's,
to go that you're gonna give us more detail.
yeah, he's gonna give you
I'd
more
like
right
to
now.
get more detail about.
Oh, absolutely.
He's gonna go there right now.
Oh, right now?
Yeah.
Yep. Just in kind of almost to the commissioners, so the next comments there, the next exercise is going to be kind of getting some feedback on what is important. What do we want to subsidize and or support versus what would we consider services, programs, activities that should pay for themselves and then some. This is certainly a little bit more of a subjective exercise, but no less important. And what we'll go through is essentially this idea of assigning programs and services based on their perceived benefit. And the benefit ranges all the way from what we would consider a great community, a high community benefit, all the way to a high individual benefit. And we'll kind of look at some examples of what that means. Those of us that have been in the recreation world for a number of years may recall and have seen the pyramid. This is kind of the original shape, if you will, and design that was landed on for communities around the country to assign their programs and services to. And so the idea being that bottom tier of the pyramid is your community-based programming, whereby which we want to fully support that or have it be low cost recovery altogether, versus all the way up at the top where we would see that 100 to 150% of those programs and services. And just generally, we see that bottom roll, and it's very hard to see there, our youth programs, our teen programs, things that bring a community benefit that transcend the revenue generated by a fee, versus where we tend to see at the top, our adult sports. We always like to pick on adult softball for those communities that do that, right? They should pay for their way in themselves, right? And so that's the idea behind kind of assigning that. And this will be an outcome of our work here, is to have your programs categorized similar to this. We're not going to land on a pyramid, but we certainly could. The next slide, I just want to give a couple of examples. This
Can I
is
just ask real quickly, because it's been listed twice. What are community special events?
So
What's an
like,
example?
we're talking about the tree lighting, for instance, summer concerts,
egg hunt.
free concerts, egg
The events
hunt.
that don't cost any money. Pretty much all of our events except Shannon.
Okay, yeah, tree lighting,
That's-
that's huge. There's so much benefit from that.
Yeah, and now we get some support too from the town, but in years past, it was us. But
Okay.
anyway, that is the answer.
Great, thank you.
So
Yeah.
question for you, when you're looking at our programs and assigning these, are you doing that based on percentage of cost recovery to put them in, or are you making a value judgment on whether they're community benefits or?
Great question. So it's the inverse of that. And we're not doing, this is the part that you all are doing.
Okay.
And so
This is the part where
staff has gone through this exercise because it's your community, your programs. We're going to ask you to take a pass at assigning where you think your programs and services lie. And then based on that feedback, wherever they end up, we'll assign the cost recovery and fee level to them based on that.
I see. So you'll build your model based on where we decide.
Exactly. Yeah.
Model,
Yeah,
and then
yeah.
this is- Yeah.
And so this final leg of the project, this exercise will inform where we see those targeted fee adjustments. And so whatever programs end up, if it were a pyramid, whatever programs end up in that higher echelon of the pyramid, we'd see most likely a higher fee adjustment up there because theoretically they drive more of an individualistic benefit.
That's a great opportunity for community input.
Yeah.
at that point.
This is what we're doing here right now.
And while this is great, this is fun, there's no right or wrong way to do this. And of course, it's completely subjective. So we always have to kind of take it with a grain of salt. What I might consider a benefit to me is going to be different than what you consider a benefit to you and your family. There's no way to ever get a complete agreement. And, that's not our exercise, but we want to give the chance, community feedback is what it's.
So can I ask a question on that exercise in terms of the contract that you have with you?
Mhm.
Are you engaged with us through supporting community exercises and community input, or are you doing an analysis for us and then we got to go somewhere else to go
I'll take
Yeah,
that.
do that?
go ahead.
What's
I'll
in
take
the
that, and then
contract?
you can
What's in the contract?
Is that fair?
Yeah, no, go ahead.
Okay, so right now, we're literally showing you what we're then gonna ask you. And so he has several more slides to tell you what our process is. But you will be giving me input, and you'll see that in a second, how we're gonna do it. And we've already done that exercise with our staff. Okay, and you're gonna be doing it next. So he's just telling you, he's giving you the context, and you're kind of jumping ahead, but you're gonna see it. He's giving you the context of why we're asking you what we're gonna ask you. Okay, so he'll tell you how and why.
Before going, I think it's a good thing. We're spending more time on this than the agenda allocated, but I want to continue to have this conversation and we'll come back to any other item can be tabled for now. I think we need to get through this and do the answer.
And this rest will go fairly quickly. It
Yeah,
won't be as-
So, you mean we as the commissioners or we as in the public?
We as commissioners, we as staff.
Okay.
So yeah, so you'll see kind of what we're doing
Yeah.
as he goes through it.
We don't have any.
We do not.
Public engagement.
Then it's
We do not.
my question about.
Right.
That was my question about what's on our current contract.
We can talk about that, sir, because we do have some flexibility, but I would like to table it so we can have a private conversation.
One more definition. So
Yep.
drop-in senior and youth drop-ins, what is that? Just like open gym?
Yeah, and these aren't your programs here. This is just an example.
Oh, example,
Yes,
okay.
yeah. Some of them might be identical, but yes, this is just an old example. And I just want to share, the next slide is another agency that we worked with. They elected to kind of do this. You can see the community benefit and the cost recovery levels that they've assigned various groups. And so just another example of an outcome. Again, there's no right or wrong way to do this. And finally, the next slide was one we did with Raleigh, North Carolina, and they ended up on this categorization of their programs. And you can see that they've chosen, you can see 70 to 80% cost recovery, 20 to 30% tax supported. This, of course, is a general fund environment. There's no revolving or enterprise funds here, so that's why there's tax dollars involved. But nonetheless, the concept is the same, and they did this as well.
And this is a wonderful, do you mind?
Yeah.
I was
No, no,
gonna interrupt. This
yeah.
is a wonderful recreation program.
Yeah.
Well, respected, large,
Very large.
helpful to look at. So as I know, we'll move through this slide pretty quickly, but I think this is the best visual for me. But we will get to decide. We at this table get to decide what our final sustainability model looks like. This is Raleigh's final sustainability model.
Yep.
And that's where we're gonna go. So.
And so, just on the next slide, we'll get into, and this is just one snippet of essentially your program guide or your menu. We just happen, no right or wrong, it's just what was at top. So we have our adult programs and some of our youth programs. And so much like we did with staff, we just asked you to, subjectively as time permits, go through and nothing more than a check or an X in a box, and doesn't have to be too scientific, just kind of what you would think. Where would you consider these programs to lie? Would our adult programs, theoretically, with most of, I'm not even gonna say anything because I don't want to plant any seeds.
I know. I was gonna say- I was gonna say
We're
that.
just gonna ask you to go through this exercise and we'll follow up with the worksheets of kind of ranking some things. We'll certainly provide you, if you go to the next slide, with some guidance. Again, this is essentially what the final output will look like. As you can see that some of these community benefit high programs are community events. Again, these are just examples here. And a community benefit medium would be kind of a lesser, the youth leagues, things of that nature. But you'll have this with descriptions. And finally, that next slide, this is essentially, it will be your guiding, your definitions between what are categories, what is considered a program that would fit in the community benefit high category versus what would be considered an individual benefit high category. Again, these are not absolute. There's no law that says these have to be. This is just what we've developed as guidance for consideration. And then after the exercise is done, each of those benefit categories will be assigned a cost recovery range. And so, and then therefore your programs, most likely your programs and community benefit high will be fully supported to very low cost recovery. And again, down in our higher level will be our 100% and then some cost recovery programs, and then everything in between. And that kind of gives guidance. And that not only demonstrates a cost recovery or sustainability model, it also helps staff when down the road there was a question about, new programs that might be added, things of that nature. Well, where does my program fit in here and how do I assign a fee to it? Well, if I know it fits into category kind of middle here, I can then develop my fee based on that cost recovery guidance to go ahead and say it should be X, Y, or Z.
As part of this, will we also look at the current cost recovery relative to whatever bucket we put it in and talk about the feasibility of potentially moving something that's really low?
Certainly. Yeah, well, we have that information to do that crosswalk.
Okay.
Again, it's only as good as sometimes, although detailed information here is fantastic. It's only as good as that. And sometimes it trails off when we really try to get down into, tracking the program on Tuesday afternoons type of thing, just because we don't track that. We don't have the system.
Yeah, we have to stay.
We have to stay within the information we get from our systems, but we will have a little ability to crosswalk. Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
You'll know, this is the number of children that benefit from the after-school program.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yes. Some of those higher level metrics.
The basketball program. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And we'll handle that part,
Yeah.
just so you know, after we get the information that we're gonna get from you and your vote, your thinking, we'll bake it in to our next step.
And then finally, the last couple of slides, again, we won't take a deep dive. I know we're way past time, but you'll get provided this too. Again, just a little bit more of a deep dive into what would be some individual benefit distinctions.
I think
And
we should stick for a second on
Okay,
this
and-
slide, because we're not in a hurry. I don't want to
Okay.
rush you.
all right,
Yeah.
these are characteristics generally that we've gathered over projects and programs and just the recreation industry in general. When we talk about a program that is more individualistic from a benefit standpoint, we see that it's voluntary participation for the most part, benefits the individual user, usually supports higher fees and cost recovery, and then some examples of your actual programs that might fall within those categories. Again, then they don't have to, but it would be kind of your master swim classes, your private swim lessons, adult tennis, and otter swim team or kind of sanctioned league type sports. And on the finance side of things, for an individual benefit distinction, we will target that higher cost recovery, and we reduce reliance on kind of revolving fund support that is going to that fund balance to support these programs. And we want that last bullet point, I think, is key, is we want these programs to generate a surplus to support those other programs that might provide a broader benefit, versus the next slide, which is the other end of the spectrum, is our community benefit. And we assume that these programs, provide benefits that extend beyond the users to the broader public, right? And nobody's going to probably argue that teaching a kid to swim has broader benefits to the community than just the $25 for the fee that the lesson costs. So a very basic example there, but these programs tend to support health, equity, and social cohesion, and then they produce those secondary outcomes, which is why it's just not a revenue generation mechanism. It produces those youth development and community identity. And these are things that are often expected when you say, what should Concord Recreation be doing? These are the core services that the community expects out of the department to little to no cost.
Pilates reformer.
No,
Yeah.
this
No,
is,
that- we did- we-
this,
we did-
this, we, you know what?
We did that.
You are
Yeah.
so good on your detail.
Yeah.
We actually, DJ and I actually caught this.
And it's
This
funny
was the
because-
only mistake we
Yeah.
caught on the slide, but yes, good job.
That should have been on the previous.
He planted in there to see if we're paying attention.
Seriously, you did me dizzy.
We have this.
That was a cut and paste.
Yeah, that's an error. That's an error. Good call, good call.
And that's not to say that these don't generate some cost recovery, but they will be supported either by tax base or subsidies, and that's your fund balance. Again, the tax is kind of a different type of a framework. But again, I think a key distinction is these are kept affordable to maintain access to these programs. And if we did consider full cost recovery for these things, it just probably wouldn't be feasible, right? If we expected full cost recovery for a swim lesson and we calculated all the things up from the roof all the way down to feeding, we're talking about hundreds and hundreds of dollars for a
For a swim
particular lesson.
Right.
That's just not of the nature of municipal recreation services. So just to, again, kind of these frameworks to help you all go through the exercise. And again, nothing is law, nothing is absolute, but these are generally some of the core concepts over the projects and years that we've landed on that help people go through this exercise.
That is the presentation, yes.
I think we've done.
This is really, it's wonderful. I'm really glad we're taking exercise. We've got a lot of homework to do, clearly.
So what I think I'm gonna do next, just so you know, is the worksheet that is on the agenda. It's posted obviously on the town calendar. This whole presentation is that slide where it had the squares and really want people to think individually. So you are gonna get an email from me. I am gonna email out that spreadsheet, and I'm gonna email the group, the whole commission, and you can only respond to me personally. So there can't be any communication, as you probably know, you all took your training, we can't communicate with each other. Open meeting law, but I am gonna ask you just to send it back to me. And we are gonna take that information along with the staff's information, of course, you and we can go to the select board if you want it, but we're gonna get our community input, and then we're gonna come back and give it back to Jesse, and he's gonna be able then to come back to us with our information, with everything loaded in our information, allow us to again to look at it, right? And then to set these, okay? So you will see him again.
So with a specific thing, you just wanted to do one of these boxes.
Yes, we're
right?
gonna,
Check
we're just
it.
gonna
One of
put a
those,
check in one of those
okay.
boxes.
All right.
That's it, and then you'll email it back to me, and then I'll have your input. And we are looking to do it.
And you'll
Sorry.
map that against existing services and kind of.
We'll use your input, we'll use the staff's input, anyone else that just thinks we need to get, and then we'll put it all together and we'll create our own model draft. We'll then be able to assign fees to it and give you the next projection. So you'll visit it, you'll see him again. We'll be back to you again to show you what it actually looks like. And we may even get your feedback again. It kind of depends on where we
Yeah,
are.
absolutely.
But I do only expect to do this once.
Yeah. No, I think that's great. And that will crosswalk to the financial model and it all fits together at that point.
Okay, thank you so much, Jesse.
Yeah,
I really appreciate it.
Sorry for taking over the whole meeting here.
No, this is terrific. This is interesting.
Yeah.
And so the expected time frame for looking at this is by the end of the summer, the budget will close out. We'll have the realistic numbers. You want some feedback from us?
Right now, I'll be getting that soon.
Yeah, and then when's the next time, when do we anticipate you'll have had a chance to incorporate commissioner
Yeah,
input,
I'll
staff
probably come back
input,
in August.
the next number, so we can assume next time we meet, we should schedule, we want to put on our agenda that we want to look at the next model, the next
Probably
iteration.
in August,
Yeah.
somewhere around August, September.
My guess is we probably want to schedule that for September, notoriously hard to get everybody in a room in August.
True.
For doing that, it would be difficult for us all, and I think we want to, quorum is one thing, we want the entire commission here when we're having these conversations as best as we can, so my guess is that's probably gonna be a September meeting rather than an August meeting, but
Okay, sounds good.
send out the information that we have there, and then another conversation I do want to talk about maybe we'll talk about this at our September meeting. When we get this next iteration of what we've got from all our internal conversation, we want to decide what we want to do about what part of this and when do we go out for broader public participation? When do we want to sit down with the Board of Selectmen and say, here's what we're finding, we want that
That
kind
needs
of
to be, yeah.
conflicts. Where are we gonna go with that context in terms of a broader conversation? I think it is important for us to do a huge chunk of work up front, and be comfortable with where our sort of baseline is to go out to comment. That's the work we'll do this summer and fall. But we do need to think about, and we need to have that conversation about what resources do we have to go out and do public comment.
Okay, not built in.
Not
to
part of
the
this,
design,
not part of this.
Not into the contract, so you and I should talk after this meeting and kind of create a plan with Jess, because she has to decide to part of how this moves forward with the public. The public
Yeah,
conversation.
I think we should, once we've worked through our
think he-
model, we want to have a
he does
conversation about
set
what our goal is for.
I mean, where did,
What we take
Yeah,
out
I
the
know,
other.
but-
yeah, I'm done when you say we're done.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we've
I've
only got so much money we can pay to.
I've had some conversations already, so let me
Yeah.
just say that we should
Okay.
talk about.
We will, but we'll have some of those conversations internally with the administration to put on the table at our meeting in September. So
And I completely agree that there does need to be a component of this where we do hear from the broader public about kind of where they feel the fees should fit in and where their priorities are.
Does-
But I know that in terms of your mapping exercise and the amount of budget you have, that may be, I mean, we could do those.
Yeah, I'm not wanna take your feedback, and I understand your feedback, and I understand his as well.
Yeah,
And
there's
we'll work with Jess and
They're-
determine our next steps.
They are related but separate exercises. You gotta go through the exercise of building a model with a certain amount of input and feedback from a select group. You've got to start there.
Yeah.
Then it's up to us to figure out what we want to do with it. Figure
You
out.
just don't want end users to be like, wait, you're raising our fees by
Absolutely.
20%. We never heard about this.
Yeah, sure. Jesse, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you so much. We'll certainly be touching base again.
Yes, we will.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Have a nice evening.
Safe drive
We'll
home.
be in touch, ladies. Yeah.
Safe drive.
Yeah. Thank you.
Very useful. Thank you.
Bye-bye. You're welcome. Thank you for having me. Bye.
Bye-bye, good night.
All right,
Thank you.
that was, took us a
He's
little
great.
longer than we anticipated. But good conversation. You joined us at a great time. Well, it was a good time to be getting into the details of what's going on. We do have next two items. So there is I believe I have been the chair of the commission now for something like 2 years, and there is my understanding of Board of Selectmen policy that we are asked to rotate the chairs after 1 year. We're supposed to do it every year, and we haven't done it now for something like 2 years. So I would like to have a conversation about who would be the next chair, but I think we should do that with all 5 commissioners here if we can, and we'll make our next meeting a time when we will have all 5 commissioners here. And we'll have a chance to have some conversations. I believe we can have one-on-one conversations with each other, right? With commissioners?
Yes,
We can each talk to each other. We just can't talk as a group about it.
Yes.
So we should each have those conversations with each other about what a structure should look like moving forward. But I need to step down as the chair, as per the policy directed to keep us rotating around. So let's try to put the sort of conversation about that and selection of someone on our agenda for the next meeting.
How long are terms? We have 3-year terms or?
3-year terms. Yeah, and we should also get an update of who's on, what the time is, if we can figure that out.
It is already updated on the website.
It is.
Yes.
it's updated on our website,
Our
under the
website,
recreation.
which term you are currently on and when that term expires.
Is there can you not serve a certain amount of time? What is that? I mean, the thing is institutional knowledge can be very valuable.
I think,
It's
Maggie,
Maggie, it's no one else.
yeah, it's 2 terms.
Okay.
There is an exception under, I think it's APP 10 or 40. It's been under heavy discussion lately.
Okay.
I don't see exceptions to the policy being done anytime soon
Yeah,
because
no.
there's been a big push to have committee memberships changing over.
So
So,
the policy is 2
I
terms
believe it's-
and rotate a chair every year.
yes, I don't know if the policy is to rotate the chair every year, but it's strongly encouraged to rotate chair just to get continuity, having a lot of people have a vice chair, so in theory, that person can kind of work with the chair. for
Yeah,
a
we
year and then
haven't
move
done
up.
that, which we should.
I like that Steve as a vice chair to share responsibilities and maybe even have the shared information.
Yeah, or you could even do a clerk and the clerk could fill in when the chair can't be here, but it's kind of that designated person where it's like, oh, the chair can't be here, who's gonna chair?
And that's determined by the committee.
Yes.
Okay, cool.
We have not done that kind of parliamentary process very well. I'll take some responsibility for that. But I would like Daniel and to have a whole 5 of us here for that conversation, so we will make sure that our next meeting, again, probably in September, we might have a subcommittee. We might meet in August with a slightly less complicated agenda because we won't all be able to get here on the same page, but we'll target that September meeting if everybody's okay with that. I'll also finish up this meeting, and if we do something in August, then we'll figure that out sometime. Paul, any other thoughts from you on that from the board?
No, I think you got it right. I think the rotation is, I think APP 10 is the policy, which has been revised many times. And I think it does speak to the rotation of chairs, and there are exceptions not so much on the chairs, although that can be made, but on members as well, if there's specific expertise that can't be found somewhere else. But generally we'd like to have new commissioners or new members on every committee when appropriate. So I think you're doing the right thing. The terms, by the way, are June 1st. So if you elect a new chair in September, you're gonna have to decide whether you're doing that September to September or whatever. I wouldn't worry about that.
Okay. All right, we will do that. Thank you. All right, now I think we should go through discussion of sort of some of our standing topics. Some of these will have a little more conversation than others because there are a few hot topics. Paul, Select Board, anything you want to share with us from Select Board perspective?
Nothing other than the analysis that Lee that you've done here, we've heard today, is fantastic. It's never been done before, as far as I know. I remember when I was on the Recreation Commission, and the question of fees came up and rates, it was kind of pulling out of thin air. What we felt the market could bear, and et cetera. I think this analysis is really important, and it's quite consistent with how the Finance Committee wants to understand things. As you know, they're going through a process right now. FinCom is of trying to understand all the operations and all the departments to get ready for guidance next year. So no, that's all I have. I will say, you're going to get through it, but I'm really pleased we're finally doing a Giroux opening. It's personal. I don't want to preempt the discussion, but
You got us excited about it. No, but we'll talk about yes.
Yeah, we'll come back
we'll talk
to
about
more
it.
input, Paul, on several of these things coming up.
Yeah.
I don't believe our Finance Committee liaison is with us this evening.
Here's a quick update I can give.
Oh, great.
Actually, maybe Jess should give it.
Great.
Were you gonna give the one?
Dan, you need to.
Yes, so to tag on what Select Board Member Bohm just stated, the Finance Committee is actually going through an exercise where they're having all the different departments and divisions come in and kind of present a lot of its information from like the budget book and the annual report, but kind of like board charts, what we do, goals, accomplishments, things like that. So Recreation and BD are on for July 13th. So Lee and I believe Jenny confirmed she's going to be presenting respectively for Hunt and BD. So certainly if anybody wants to tune in or show up that night for support. For some of the newer members too, I think it was June. It was a meeting in early June that FinCom did, and the town manager gave kind of a nice intro overview of just kind of some basics about like government, different statutes and laws that apply to be like, we get money from here. You might hear things about like Chapter 70, Chapter 90. That might be really good just to kind of learn a little bit. And then the finance department actually did their presentations. You can kind of see the format they're going to be following. And Jennifer had all of her divisions come in. So she had
CFO,
treasurer present, she had the accountant present, everybody did their segments. So I think it was the early June meeting, but the materials are all out there. That might be just a good info just to learn a little bit more about kind of the direction they're going.
Yeah, just 2 more things on that. I think FinCom is doing that primarily, and they have 4 new members, but they want to get very familiar with the operations before they set guidelines and before they actually comment on anyone's budget. I think in the past, I don't want to criticize, but they've made guidelines and made a commentary without really understanding the operation. So they want to understand that better. I will say that each of these sessions is a tremendous opportunity for community learning to understand how our town works and how our town government works. It should record these. It should be a mandatory education for every citizen. I'm being facetious there, but I really think there's it's really a terrific effort to teach not only FinCom, but teach the community how the government works.
Okay, July 13th noted. Anybody wants to attend, that would be terrific. I will be out of town on the 13th, but great to see what happens there. Strategic plan initiatives. I'd like to come back to this one, just take it out of order, because I do think, there's a lot of focus on this cost recovery exercise right now. Strategic plan initiatives, when we have to begin to think about broader, bigger pictures about potentially capital investments and the opportunities at MCI and 2229 Main Street, the PVD School, all those facilities, the conditions of this building here, all the sort of major capital investments that we might want to make. We need to figure out how to have that conversation. And I have a specific question for you, Paul, about how and where those conversations are happening now, and there might be opportunities for us to fit in. I don't know that we have our thoughts in order, but it would be helpful to know how those broader conversations are happening and when we might be able to tie into them, so we can figure out when we should be doing a little bit more of take our heads up from the details and think about big picture conversation that builds upon what we did in the strategic plan.
Are you talking about the broader conversations about recreation in town or
Yes.
capital? Yeah.
Well, they're both. They're related. You can't really do one without the other.
Well, I think each department is, in preparation for each budget cycle, is thinking about capital projects and, thinking of projects and where the funding comes from, whether it's grants or town capital, what kind of capital. So I think that's a departmental exercise. As far as more strategic things going on, there are 2 that I know of. One sort of and I think Lee and Jess and others know about this. I've been talking to Edge Sports, private organizations, about their interest in actually building an indoor facility somewhere in town because we have land, whether that's 2229 or whether that's MCI or something else. Because honestly, I think for the town to build a new municipal facility on our own nickel is probably not going to, given all the other capital needs. So I've been seeing whether that is feasible. There is some interest in that. And as far as MCI, if you look at the various options right now that are on the table, and they're not final options, there is not a lot of space for indoor recreation there, although there's a gym and this if you've been to the small sessions with Spec Dempsey, there is a gymnasium that was in existence for the prison, and that's still sort of under discussion whether that remains and what happens to that, or whether that's bulldozed over. And if it remains, is that a municipal facility that the town wants to take over as a recreation facility? This is an indoor facility, or is it something that we outsource to a developer? So I think strategically, and I think it's in the plan, the need for indoor recreation, I think, is really pretty acute in town. Everybody I spoke to Representative Cataldo, who's very much, understanding that more indoor recreation is needed in town. And Hunt Gym, as great as it is, and even if it's expanded and fixed up, I think it's still between the indoor pickleball and other indoor sports. There is a couple of seasons called fall and winter where outdoor recreation is tough. So
I think it would be part of that conversation, I mean, this has been the message that we've gotten from you, from your predecessor, from the town administration. There really is not, whether the correct word is appetite or opportunity in the foreseeable future for any significant town investments in recreation facilities. That's the message we've been getting, which will then, that informs sort of what we need to think about. Do we need to look at public-private partnership models, private opportunities that can come in, and also to look at those things that we need specifically to fix so we don't fall into a hole, right?
Our current
There's
facility.
our current facility. So, strategically I think we all appreciate that. I don't think there's any argument that anyone's gonna say, we ought to be going out there and arguing for, $15 million investment in a new facility, because I just don't think realistically that's going to happen. We need to continue to have those conversations, but from a strategic plan perspective, I think what I'm particularly interested in seeing is that we don't lose sight of maintaining the facilities that we have now, and that should be a priority on the capital budget for the town. And those larger conversations can take place, town-wide. I think it's just sort of where I come from. That's
Yeah, I agree with that. And, maintaining facilities and, modest expansion of facilities, I don't think that's out of the question. I think, major new investments on whole new buildings or whole new facilities, we have a lot of fields. I think repurposing and optimizing the use of our fields, we've talked about that for many years. I think that, there's no shortage of quote unquote fields in town. It's just they're not all used, especially the school fields. And I know that DJ has had a lot of conversations in the past. I think those the strategic conversations with the schools, I don't know where that is right now in terms of field use. I think that should continue.
Jessica's laughing. No, I'm kidding, Paul.
All right, I think that's something for us to think about, and I think one of the challenges for a new chair will be to think about how do we have those conversations, and how do we go through this exercise of the cost recovery model and understanding how we operate our current facilities. How do we have that conversation about maintaining our current facilities? Get those two houses in order before we start talking about the big, broader expansions and investments. That's the message that came out of the strategic plan, and it's where I think we need to be. As a commission.
It's funny though that you talk about the fields and you mention liaison with schools, because from my perspective as like a user, I don't feel that we have it. We don't have enough access to having them. So I would love to hear about that at some point. But how we, if there are existing fields, why are we not using them to the level that we could? Because it seems to be a constant issue as a child. As a person who has children that's involved with sports, to find that space. So
Welcome to your first subcommittee.
And Bill, the last thing I'll mention is, I'm a big fan of CPC.
1 second, Paul. Sorry, hold on 1 second, Paul.
That's it. I'm just curious. It's like
soccer, softball,
yeah.
Okay. Go ahead, Paul.
No, I was going to say, as you know, I'm a big fan of the Community Preservation Committee and those funds. And I think those are recreation specified in there. I think you guys ought to think annually about tapping into CPC applications for whatever purposes you think.
You're the sultan of the segue, Paul.
It is a good
The
thing.
Community Preservation Committee, Matt, do you have any updates from the
It's a
current
really,
committee?
really interesting committee. The reinforced concrete is something they're extremely interested in. And as I discussed, the bids are going out
It's related to the Ride Out Park project.
Yes, the Ride Out. And I think the proposal was that it would extend the life of that 20 more years. And they thought that was going to be a good investment. And I think realizing if there's more money, we could go theoretically back to them. They could consider that depending on what that bid is. And then the other thing was, I see Giroux Park is the dock that was discussed where that is, and that has been in contemplation as well. Yes, but I mean, CPC, I think there were some funds in that as well. I think that's a good conversation. It looks like there's a date that we could go and maybe the town / we absorb that and take more control. And I think the dock would be a very interesting thing if that's still viable. I do know that the new applications, I think, are submitted in September. So as just discussed, if we want to put something in there, a third of that should go to recreation or conservation. And there is.
Let's go to that for a second.
I'm writing it down.
For recreation.
Yes. So it's for, community preservation or in recreation is part of it. And the divvy up is it's gotta be a certain percentage for each of that, so we should be applying for it.
Deciding what we want.
Yeah.
We need to do the formal process of reassigning a rep to the Community Preservation Committee. Matt, are you interested in continuing on that?
I'd love to, I don't want yet, but I think I'm very
Is
interested.
anybody else interested in taking that one on? If there's no problem with us not rotating people on
Not that I.
committee appointments or anything like that. So if all of those are in favor of Matt continuing as, I propose that Matt continue as our representative on the CPC committee. Second, all those in favor? Great, thank you. Land use working group. Matt, was there anything on that one?
Yeah, so just, I'm on that with Paul. It's extremely interesting, and I don't know how in-depth people have gotten to it. I did a little presentation on utilizing slides that we've done, but again, there was three focuses were on phase 2 of that. Again, we're not a decision-making body. We are to make recommendations for the select board to make in the future. I think there was some
Okay.
confusion about that. A lot of input, which is great. The 3 factors are public safety, fire, police. There is a lot of public interest of moving. West Concord has become a larger population, so fire should probably definitely go there. We've got to figure out how that's done and the cost with that and how we pay for that, maybe sell some property, maybe do some other things. Consolidation of town and staff, putting them in one area that's more usable and maybe selling some property, putting it somewhere else, where that is, that, consideration of properties that we own or maybe not own, where they can be, so it's not as siloed and there can be more collaboration in public works. Which the DPW site right now is in Kai's Road. There is interest in perhaps if that was to be moved, that could be maybe sold for apartments. Again, these are not decisions that we made. And the recommendation from the committee in phase 1 was to move Public Works to Concord MCI. I don't know if we voted specifically on that, but that's in the report. And then if people haven't gone to Spec Dempsey's, it's really closely tied to Concord MCI of what we could put there that we don't want to put there. But they have Spec Dempsey has created at least 2 proposals, one with DPW there and one without it there. If it's without it there, then the question is where do the DPW go? And one of the things that we realize is that property needs to be between 7 to 12 acres. And where do we own currently has 7 to 12 acres to utilize all this property and what's there. The positive thing about Concord MCI is there is a building that could be utilized, so you wouldn't have to recreate a building for all the staff you have. So been very interesting. Again, this is not a decision body. We are on phase 2 of that process. And again, the overlap of Concord MCI that very interesting, but all those are public for people to review, and there's been some nice public participation in that as well. It's also a super interesting thing, and not to undercoach stuff, but right now this is stuff that's going to be developed in the next 10 years. Very informative. That being said, nothing is going to happen. So you got to figure out what the zoning is. Probably stuff could start happening at the soonest is maybe 2030. And then if anyone went to the Concord MCI and the road, I don't want to get too off track, but the Concord Rotary is part of that as well. There's so many things that are in such close proximity that one can't happen without the other. Our first land use working group was a puzzle piece, and it's like all these puzzle pieces need to come together. You can't make a decision without making a decision for another part. For example, the cost of these things are going to be tens of millions of dollars. To do that, perhaps you sell a property and pay for something else. But there's a lot of things that we're contemplating, again, not a decision-making body, but for having other decision makers in the future be able to contemplate this.
I think there's a couple of places where it has a direct nexus to us. I mean, the larger vision for an MCI and how recreation is incorporating that, certainly a big question. But specifically where I think it comes down to when you talk about consolidating staff and functions, it's what moves where and what does not move where. And ties into our conversation earlier about community benefits and all those kinds of things about where do you locate your child care program? Where do you locate those kinds of things that we have to be very cognizant. You can't, you don't pick those things up and move them without really thinking about what's going on, because people, they're oriented toward these things, and we need, that's the one that sort of stands out to me as something we need to be very cognizant of about.
So I don't know if anyone, I think did you go to the spec, the spec, I'm sorry, they did have plans with pickleball courts, indoor tennis ball courts. So they do know recreation to be part of it, they do have greenery space. We did talk about the gym that's existing, we also talked about, listen, maybe the space where the gym is, that gym may be antiquated, but you could put a new gym there, so that is part of it.
Yeah, it's a great opportunity.
And they do have our strategic plan, and we're when we talk,
yeah.
just for you, because you're fairly new, when we see strategic plan initiatives, that's truly recreation strategic plan, and we just finished one. So I do want to meet with you. I'll give you all that information.
I read.
Oh, you did read it. Okay. You are great.
I did my homework.
I love that. Okay, so they also have that full plan, and they're looking at that as they consider.
I mean, that's, it sort of goes on in a parallel conversation.
Yes.
People are very aware of the recreational opportunities there. I'm not suggesting that they haven't been. I think it's sort of how we engage in that's more as individuals necessarily than the commission, but there are great opportunities. All right.
Hey, Phil, just if I can just add to this very quickly. There is discussion in land use about the fate of Peabody School. And Cushing Field is not in that mix. If Peabody is sold or disposed, it would be the existing school field in that property. It would not be Cushing, so that came up earlier.
It's going to stay as is. Is that the plan?
It's the
Is that right? That was my question right when we began. So if they sold Peabody, Cushing would not be part of that. Is that what you're saying?
Well, that's the current thinking. I mean, anything could change, but that's the current thinking, and that's not a done deal. But the revenue from a potential sale of Peabody for housing or whatever, I think is very attractive, because there's no other obvious use for that building, and if we use the building, it would take tens of millions of dollars to rehab the building. The other thing, the highest priority is obviously public works and MCI and public safety, fire and police, and tackling that is the select board's going to start tackling that probably late summer. As far as the municipal consolidation of any type, that's on a much slower track right now. It's a lower priority track for a variety of reasons. So the highest priorities are public works at MCI and fix fire and police in town.
Okay, that's very helpful, Paul. Thank you. All right, Lee, I'm gonna turn over you for the Ride Out Court.
I'll give you an update. And I think, okay, so this might be out there, might not be out there, but we have our Ride Out Court resurfacing project, which I think Amalia might already know about. It sounds like, which is awesome. And this project is underway right now, just at the beginning of the project. The RFP, the final touches and final drafts are being shared with me right now. Actually, I just got it today. I think it's going to be the final time for me to look at it. I'll probably pass it to you. There's just a couple of questions they had for us yesterday, so there was a Teams call on it, but I believe that'll be issued within weekdays. And that'll be issued, and then we'll get going on the project. So it's a little bit later.
Is that what you're
Yes.
Yes.
You're almost at the.
Yes.
It'll be
Is
live.
that something we don't have to talk about? You can share with all of us?
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
The final document will be
Yeah.
public and posted, and I'll send you a note. I'll take a note to make sure that you're aware so you can read it.
Yeah, the target was to start the work in the fall because of the way weather works and concrete dries and this sort of thing that target. So we're on target as
We are. I mean,
much as we hope to be.
Actually, we are right on target. And I'm thinking about it. It's not July 1st yet. We're doing pretty good.
Yeah, so we're on
Yes.
target to get out for fall construction. And as we said earlier, when those bids come back, we'll know if we were completely way off in what our estimates were and whether we want to have a conversation with
Still has
the
this-
regulation committee about
Uh-huh.
more funding, or we can absorb a little bit of the revolving fund. Right. So, all right, the Maisie O'Donnell Dry Diving Facility Project at BD. Jess, are you in a position to give us an update?
Yeah, I
on
can
that?
give us an update. So we've gone through a couple variances of designs, preliminary designs and sketches. There were some concerns from the BD staff and team, as well as Lee, about just making sure we have continuity of operations, that back proposed driveway area where the addition would be going is definitely the hub of Beatty in terms of water deliveries, chemical deliveries. There's staff parking down there. It's a big hub. So the consultant that is working with the O'Donnell family entertained all of our concerns, has redone the sketches, worked in some additional parking. The schools have also striped at their expense, 6 additional parking spaces in the greater lot, which will allow, the O'Donnell family to proceed now with at least getting permits for the building because they've, under the special permit that's in place, there had to be X number of parking spaces over the whole complex. So if we're gonna lose any back there, they had to make sure that there was the equivalent amount made up elsewhere. The work we have ahead is getting with the school committee and the school department just to hammer out some additional details in terms of where we can have appropriate dedicated staff parking within the school complex. As well as making sure that there's ultimate space for staging of equipment and materials for all of the various capital projects coming down the road. The roof, of course, is underway right now. We've got the issue with the back wall that's out there. We're looking to close in. It's the patio, correct?
Yeah, we're doing a feasibility study,
Yeah,
27 for closing in the patio where this concrete slab is right now. Outside the cardio room, why not close that in and use that as a fitness area, multi-purpose room? So we are doing feasibility.
Even during the, you could use it during the winter.
Yeah.
Oh, it's great.
Exactly. to
Yeah.
get some addition. That's what I saw and I said, well, why isn't this closed in? So we're doing that.
So, are we satisfied then that the operational concerns around the back, the loading dock area, the delivery area have been met with the new design changes?
I feel they have. I sent you an email, Lee, I know you're out on Friday, I'm still catching up, but I did have a subsequent call with Matt from Thought Forums, who's the consultant working with them. And I feel like it's in a good place.
Right. That has always been my, the piece of the puzzle that we need to be sure of. We all are very supportive of adding facility, but it cannot take away from our ability to operate the facility as it is now. And there have been some conversations with the family that were challenging to have to make sure that that vision was met, and we need to make sure that we do that. So if you're telling us that we've met those things, that we're not going to end up in that situation when there's a snowstorm in the middle of the winter and we've lost another 6 feet of space down there in the loading dock and the chemicals come to the pool, there's no place for the truck to go. And that we've met all of those issues that we identified, that's great. I'm glad to hear that we've done that. Because losing whatever it is, 50-60% of the operating space down there
It's a big chunk. It's a big.
is challenging when you bring in big semi trucks to deliver, HVAC systems and things like that. So there were a lot of tricky things to work out. Is there a role that you foresee for us in continuing that conversation with the school department? Because the broader campus may need to be brought more into being, when you're doing major things, we have to bring in huge cranes to lift things up, to fix the roof and bring in things like that. You need to stage that somewhere, and that had been done previously
Yes.
in that back area. We may need to do that elsewhere. And the school department was like, wait, what's going on? How do we have that conversation? Do you need something from us?
I think it will be helpful at the right time for the commission to be a voice to advocate for us with the school committee. There's a lot of different nuances and rules. Like when I had asked the question about, how we weren't able to have our crane out front for the roof, I was told that it wouldn't, by one individual, that just wouldn't work with moving parking spaces, but then subsequently in another conversation with somebody else from school committee, I was told that the bylaws or whatever with the schools, we can't be doing any sort of construction work during the day, which is why we weren't allowed to park the crane.
Hold that thought. Think about that, what that means.
It's
No construction during the day.
on the school property, which is why they said we couldn't park the crane out front. So we definitely have to have conversations with the schools to make sure that down the road, we're gonna be able to have access. And again, our agreement is up in 2 years, right, Lee? With our, lease and our agreement with the schools to have PD center on that property. So it's gonna be a pivotal time to start having some of those conversations to make sure that, the parking is tight for everybody everywhere, the needs are tight up there, and it's not getting any better anytime.
Our contract with B rented, doesn't
It's
BD have like 100-year lease? It's
No, it's 20.
20. Oh, interesting. So is
Up
it
in
the
2
first
years.
time it's
Yes.
revolving right?
Yes.
And they're renting that from the schools, the schools.
I mean, you can't not, when there is no, like, they're not like, you can't rent it anymore. It's 20 years seems like such a small.
That's not, I don't really think that's the concern. It's the concern that why we were talking about, I'm just adding, I don't. mean to interrupt you.
That's fine.
The Mazie O'Donnell Center is being landed on BD, so it's a good time for us to add that to the contract, is what she's talking about. And then because it's taking a lot of our operational space, we still have operational needs. So the big thing that Jess just brought up is we will need the commission's support to find out and make sure of it. Sure, absolutely sure. We can meet all of our operational needs and stage projects that we absolutely know are coming, like the roof.
Yeah.
Because we need big cranes, and we asked now. She already asked. She got a no.
So the question, we're renegotiating sort of operating, for lack of another, I don't know what.
Yeah, there's a lot in there.
It's an operating agreement about
Public-
what we
the
can and
public
can't do, how we do it. And if the impacts of adding a facility, which we all support, change how we have to do some major operations of capital projects that we know are coming. We're looking to the school committee, I think, to relook at that operating agreement
Review
to
it.
allow us to do this. How are we gonna be able to make those things work?
Who'd you get a note from?
I think
Committee?
I think
Well,
we're conflating two issues. I don't think it became.
But for different
I don't
reasons.
know if this, I think we're just looking to have a frank conversation. After 20 years, we've learned what works at the PD Center. Are there elements of that operating agreement that need to change? And given that we're adding this major new facilities, which has a huge impact on our operations, we're looking for a little more flexibility to be able to stage operations in other ways. That may require the school department to say, okay, we can allow X and Y to change some of our rules. I'll add my editorial comment. Parking strikes me as a red herring. It's not about parking. It's about being able to operate what we need to do. So
Operate the facility,
the-
please.
the-
Yeah.
the-
I just see
some of the
operate.
conversations have gone off on where people are gonna park. We'll find parking spaces. That's not an issue. We need to be able sure that we can do the capital maintenance and operating maintenance projects
We need to operate,
at
yeah.
the facility. And we need
And
to.
this new development, this new addition is going to eat up that
It
space.
eats up
That's absolutely
60% of the space where we
Yeah.
stage
So,
things.
but the school is saying, no, you cannot do this from the school property.
They haven't said that. We haven't really got that. The school's supportive of the new facility. We're all supportive of the new facility.
Where do you put everything?
We raised the issue of
Right, it's
if
the
we
stage.
lose 60% of our infrastructure operating area, whatever you want to call it, the loading dock, how do you
Yeah.
get stuff in and out there? Where do you stage cranes? Where do you put equipment during school day, right? We can't do it. It's all done down behind the building. If we can't do that anymore, when we add a new facility, we might have to stage it on the upper parking lot. We might have to stage it in front of the building.
Right.
How can you help us make sure we can do that? And that's a conversation we need to have with the school committee.
And we're looking at options as well it's the whole thing of the pervious and impervious surface, because it's all in the watershed district. So one idea we're looking at as part of this project is having there's an excessive amount of concrete in front of beauty center, like I call it the sidewalk to nowhere. There's a big concrete sidewalk that just goes and ends. So that might be able to be taken out, and there's some other little areas where we could potentially reduce some asphalt and concrete, which by doing that, we could then add additional asphalt and concrete down. You know, there's kind of a big grassy area when you pull in, and like the drive red cars are parked at that end there. So by adding some additional paved space there, if we take away paved or concrete space elsewhere, then could create additional staging area closer to the building, and the parking could just shuffle down. So it's a lot of different things.
How close is the wetland from the back of the building?
Well, that's the thing, it's like right there.
That limits a lot of what you can do behind the building.
The whole thing is like basically like.
Yeah, there's a lot of formulas related to the Wetlands Protection Act, and there's a lot of
Yeah,
formulas related to local ordinances about parking and impervious
And
surface.
it's like the building,
Those-
the driveway has to be X number of feet before it's,
But
yeah.
in my experience, those are formulas we can work that. A
Yeah.
campus is big enough, we can work out how you can use it. It's really the operations of the police are. Not that I'm not trying to build that it's a challenge, you've got to figure it out, but that can all be resolved. You can find places.
Yes.
You can remove concrete and make it, that can all
Yeah,
be.
swapping out all that, that's.
It's a process. Somebody's got to go through that process, but it's that broader conversation so that you make sure that when we have a huge capital project at the BD Center, we can actually do it.
Yes.
Right.
All right, so we'll stay tuned to hear about when the time and
Yes, I
place.
think they're gonna be looking to go for their permits, I think sometime late summer, early fall. I think it just depends on the scheduling and the timing of when.
They submitted.
They submitted their permit application last week.
Oh, okay, great.
So you're the lead sort of on figuring that negotiation was, and okay, great. All right, Giroux, once again, Jess, we're excited, the Giroux Recreation Area.
As excited as Paul is, Paul's Jerome. So yes, we are having the ribbon cutting grand opening on that Friday, the 24th. Nancy Sumsky, who is a Giroux, will be there. She's got some other family coming as well. She's going to say a few words. I'm working with getting some folks from like Simon Cataldo's office, Rep Gentile's office, some other speakers lined up. I've blitzed out kind of that flyer invitation to, CPC who's been involved, like all the different committees and things. So it should be a nice little event.
So did you say the date?
Yes, Friday the 24th.
Okay, you did. Okay,
Yeah.
good.
I've ordered sunshine, but of course we have the lovely pavilion, so we're probably gonna set everything up under the pavilion, just both for shade if it's really sunny and hot, or if it does rain. So, and then people will be free just to enjoy the park and check out the trails and
So once that happens, then does that fall under Concord Rec?
no.
Officially open. It does not yet.
Even though it's been open for a while, it's like officially open once we do that. And details about who's going to manage or oversee Giroux are still pending. I know that Paul, I'll let you chime in as well. Paul's requested that this be on another select board agenda. I'd given an update to them. I think it was 5 months ago now. Looking kind of for some guidance and direction on things like the ribbon cutting. They discussed the monument they wanted to potentially put there. And then again, who's going to kind of manage it? Should we be programming it? Should it be passive? Should it be active? Should we be charging fees for the pavilion? No fees, reservations, a lot of different things to hammer out. But the big thing is getting the park open and ready. Oh, and there's new benches and tables that are over there. So that's made a lot of people happy as well. Lee's working on getting back her benches, which I guess they know where they are, and you guys are working on getting them dispersed back, because Recreation had loaned out some benches and tables in the short term to get seating over there. So yeah, it's moving along. And Paul, did you want to chime in with anything? Because I know you're really excited.
Yeah, just one thing, in conversations about this, I would like to ban the two words passive or active, because I'd like to just look at the park and figure out what are we going to do at the park. And, what do we call that? I mean, we're going to use the pavilion and have concerts. What is that? We're going to have, are we going to have a boat launch? There's a CPC. Are we going to have a play? Because the passive and active thing is really, I don't think it's very helpful right now, because right now, if it's active, Recreation owns it. If it's passive, somebody else owns it. But, I think that park is going to be a combination ultimately of passive and active activities. It's going to be a hybrid, as are most parks, right? Emerson is like that.
Sorry, Paul, I have a question. Do the conversations, maybe Matt, you know this as well, do the conversations people having around MCI and looking at the broader uses of that extend as immediate butter properties like Giroux when you're talking about planning community plan, master plans for that area? Does it cross the road there and look at that sort of thing, or is that seen as a separate piece of the puzzle?
It is really part of the puzzle. I mean, in looking at the value of MCI, its proximity to the rail trail, its proximity to Giroux, proximity to Warner's Pond, that really makes that a very exciting development. So I think the future of Giroux now, Giroux was a bit of an orphan for a while. Now it's kind of front and center in terms of it's not part of MCI proper, but in terms of if you're living at MCI, you're gonna recreate in Giroux. I've even talked to them about maybe putting a pedestrian bridge across there to get Commonwealth Avenue. That's probably not going to happen, but I think there's going to be a lot of use of that park. So it's not formally part of that development, Phil, but it's really in the conversation. As is Warner's Pond, the value of having a
Yeah.
pond there, and a park there and a rail trail there is really tremendous.
I think it,
Sorry, I might just add real quickly. So yesterday, MassDOT had a really interesting presentation on the Rotary. And then there's three different proposals and they do come kind of close to that as well. I think that'll be, that'll affect that
so I think
this
this
space as well.
tying a couple things together because X number of years, I can't remember how long it was, 2 years ago, we came to the CPC committee and asked for some funds to look at doing some stuff at Giroux. We didn't really do that in light of the larger opportunity, sort of planning opportunity, the MCI and sort of master planning for all that sort of thing. But looking back at that, it seems to me that there's a way to sort of bring that project to a close without doing everything we said we were going to do. The issue that is independent of whatever we decide to do ultimately with all of Giroux, who's going to manage it, who's going to do, what kind of activities are going on there more broadly and how it ties into MCI and any future things. There's a one specific piece is it feasible to do a launch into the pond there, right? Doesn't mean you have to. You may decide that that's not what you want to do and look at the larger master plan. We had talked about looking at playgrounds and links to doing a sort of what we had talked about 2 years ago was a broader plan for just that small property. It seems like the broader plan for that small property should be incorporated into the larger discussion about everything that's going on there because it really is so integral to them. But there is one piece of the puzzle that whatever you decide to do there and whoever is in charge of everything, the practicality, feasibly, can you do water access with it? What would that look like? Because that's really tied to the fact that it's on Warner's Pond, not that it's related to MCI. So I think the way we ought to think about this sort of rethinking what we talked about doing in that grant and looking just at that very specific question so that you then have information you can put into the broader conversation about, is it feasible to do the water piece there? And perhaps not do all the pieces that we talked about playgrounds and broader, access and its links to the rest of the community, because that's gonna be part of a larger planning project. So I think that's a conversation maybe you and I can have, but sort of figuring out how would we do that, sort of meet the spirit and objective of our CPA grant, which I think people want to know, and people want to know whether it's feasible to do water access there. But walk back from sort of that, using that as a larger planning tool for Giroux and just create that fact point of, can you do the water stuff? What would it take? What's involved? And sort of provide that as input into the larger planning process.
Can we submit that if we don't manage it?
Can we submit it?
Can we submit the doc if we're not responsible for Giroux? Because right now we're not.
So I don't think we would, I think we're simply talking about feasibility.
Where we have a
Whoever-
feasibility
whoever-
study
whoever-
funding,
Whoever ultimately takes responsibility would be the one who would
Okay.
implement it, put it in, operate,
determine
manage
if
it.
they want to do it.
But we can come up with that, just sort of evaluating that fact point.
Can I just take a step back? If not us, in terms of, not RAC, in terms of programming, who's
There's two different questions. There's programming and then there's operating, maintaining.
yeah, I
sort of
understand. So I'm.
Vision for that. So we're already doing some programming and
Like pavilion rentals
Yes,
seems
that
like
sort of stuff.
thing.
that we're doing now, right? Or
No, we're not. Let's
No.
let her answer that.
Okay,
So right now, the pavilion, if somebody wants to use the pavilion, they go through the use of town property permit. There's a form online, there's a group of employees, they hear all the stuff, and then basically they say, yes, this group or whatever can use the pavilion, but there's no fee or money collected. And it's not a reservation per se, it's just letting them know that they want to use that space. Then if it's for something big, like a birthday party, like we'll make sure that, facilities, public works gets, maybe an extra recycle bin over there or something just to help, with trash. And then, public works is mowing and maintaining the lawns over there, facilities takes care of the restrooms over there. And then that's really it. So if recreation wanted to more formally manage it, and that is what was decided, then potentially, we could do programming there, formalized, bringing in money, but again, the concern is that any amount of programming recreation does there, we really can't have the expectation that recreation will be 100% responsible, because the amount of programs that Lee and her team can run there is not gonna, as we saw from the cost recovery, wouldn't generate
It's never
enough
gonna
money
generate enough.
to be able to pay Public Works to mow it, to be able to pay to replace the pavilion and that.
I
So,
see what you're saying.
yes.
So it's basically like if we took it all over, then we would have to kick back the money to be able to maintain.
Yes.
That's the conversation, because that doesn't happen on all the other part. We have some cost recovery agreement with Public Works to mow Rydell and to mow Emerson and do that kind of stuff, but it's.
Can I make, can I make two comments, because I have to get off the phone. Let me be pretty direct. Somebody has to step up and say, I want to take ownership of this park and I want to make something great of this park. If that doesn't happen, it's going to kind of bounce around and it's going to be sub-optimized, whether that's recreation or somebody else. On the CPC project, Phil, I think we need to proceed with that. It is a feasibility study. It may be infeasible to do it, but there's an obligation that recreation has of doing that feasibility study. As far as the larger planning around the whole area, it's kind of a bit of a stretch right now. You could argue, sure, the town should plan for the whole thing, but right now, MCI is not. MCI is looking at Giroux and say, hey, that's a great asset, but it's and the town spent a lot of money to buy the park and to develop it. So something has to become of that park, and somebody has to take ownership. And now, having done that, you have to come back to the town and say, in order to take ownership, I need X dollars to do it, or funding, or something. I mean, it's nobody's saying recreation has to take that and take the whole financial obligation. But step number one would be for somebody to say, I want to take it over, and then the select board to say, well, what does that mean? What do you need to take it over? Because I don't think anybody can afford to do it on their own, immediately. I have to get off. That's my soapbox. Some of you have heard it before. And, if you're new to the commission, you've heard it for the first time. And the last thing I'll say is, who's going to paint the sign, Jess? Somebody has to paint the sign.
I'm doing the sign, Paul. I am.
Arts and crafts.
Good, do it.
Get the summer
Okay.
camp kids out there to paint the.
We've talked about this.
Okay.
Thank you, Paul.
I have to get off now. I'm sorry. Great
Paul.
meeting.
Bye, Paul.
Thank you. Take care. Bye.
All right, community partner invitation, I don't think we have anything, we'll come back to that. We don't have anybody outstanding, do we, with the community
We do
partner
not.
invitation? Just so you know, that's where we invite, third parties like oars or youth soccer or other people come and talk to us about various
I think
activities.
we're gonna need a little commission time to finish the cost recovery, so if you don't mind, I'll put off the partner invitation
Yes,
until we
yes.
get through that. Okay.
Yeah. DJ,
Yes,
parking at White Pond, we're open for the season.
we are open, operational. We just got our building permit for the attendant booth to be placed on the pad. So we're just waiting on CPW now to lay the pad
There's
and
that going, I know there's two spots.
yeah, so once you pull into the driveway and then there's the fork towards the parking lot. There's a little space of land that when you break
On
off
the board?
before, no.
Oh.
No, so when you pull into the parking lot after the fork, along that driveway, the forks again where the exit comes out. And when you can loop around into the lot, there's a spot. So it'll be on the driver's side as you're pulling into the parking lot.
So rec is now going to have parking attendants during open hours to,
Yep, and they'll handle all the check-ins and things like that up top.
that actually makes a
And-
lot of sense.
It'll take off the.
Good job,
Taking off
liability
lifeguards.
down.
Lifeguards should be doing lifeguards, someone else didn't worry about check-ins and
And
collecting money.
sometimes you do get kind of like oversubscribed with the lifeguard
Yeah.
card. So it's-
Yeah, and they'll be able to communicate down to the waterfront director and the head lifeguards. If the beach is full, we'll send out communication and be able to relay that up and down. But the big thing was really alleviating the lifeguards, basically separating the lifeguards from doing their job while doing the check-ins.
So they'll actually done the check.
It's all, yeah, so we have fully staffed parking attendants right now, so we don't have every shift for the summer is full. And we started them right now. We're still in our old operation where it is on the beach with check-ins, but the operation separate from the lifeguard.
And that'll probably help with some of the crowding and.
A lot, yeah, it will allow our head lifeguards and waterfront director to manage the beach more than just who's coming in right now.
It's really nice.
What's the capacity? You said if they're over capacity.
So We really call capacity when the parking lot's full. It's hard to judge. This year we have more beach than we've had in the last, since I've been here. At least 6 years, so we have more space. We have people that like to walk in, so waterfront lifeguard will make the call, depending on space availability and things like that.
And did you share an estimated date, or do you, maybe you
It's in
don't have one?
CPW's hands right now.
Yeah, okay,
with
so
what
we
they
don't
have.
know, it's not gonna happen. I don't want anyone to think it's
No.
happening tonight, it's happening
No,
tomorrow.
the goal is to be before the end of the season. We want to get it up and running. We've run into a few roadblocks, but they're all on board. I sent them all the specs that they asked for 2 weeks ago or so, and we look forward.
And the A
You
pods.
do have attendance
Eight
now.
pods out.
You do have attendance now, but now they're gonna actually have a place to.
They're down on the beach. They'll be up at the, up
Thank
the
you.
top.
Try and catch it all beforehand. Yes.
Thank you, DJ. That's great.
And
We
again,
did-
the A pods are out too. I just want to make sure those, I have a check-in for.
Eight pods went out, the dock, we put the dock out yesterday, that's out and anchored, so we're going.
And the APODs.
Do you know what the APOD is? Yes, I was just gonna clarify what an APOD is.
To keep the gross algae and.
Very, I have access through my community.
Because you live there. Oh, yeah.
So I mean, like, so we're
Yes.
kind of going on the little private insurance side, but I love life.
There was a little bloom in Thoreau's Cove,
Huh?
there was a little bloom in Thoreau's
We'll
Cove.
save that for later.
Huh.
But it was sapped.
We're up and running now, and they're
Yes,
lessons, the lifeguards are fully staffed, all that. That's great.
yeah, great team. I'm all
Very
this
good.
summer. It's not to share.
Risk of taking us totally off topic. Is the pool open?
Yes,
It
but
is.
not for the public. It's
Just for
gonna be
camp.
used for camp only.
Okay.
Emerson?
Yes,
And that's a place that needs some TLC as well.
it's big.
Yeah, that's fine.
On the list of maintaining our current facilities.
Yes.
Great. Any new business from any of the commissioners or Lee or?
I cannot
Jess?
think of new business unless you wanna talk about not having, and she's gonna help me in a second, it sounds like. But unless you wanna talk about not having a meeting in a certain month, maybe that's new business, but it's up to you. Oh, and then Maggie has an idea.
More on a personal side, Will had his baby and Anita has her official retirement date.
Yes, we did bring up, yeah, we did bring up Anita. I don't know, if you all have used Carousel in the past, so we are celebrating Anita, who is retiring from
August.
30-ish years of service with the town.
39 years,
Oh, 39. yes.
39 years and 49 summers.
She is an incredible
The
gift.
town come back next.
to this town.
Part-time,
Not
just to
hired.
say that she's been with you guys.
Not gonna hire.
She
runs all of it.
Yeah.
She does all of it.
Yeah.
Yes.
So August.
Anita has first, I mean,
Can you share the date, confirm?
Yeah, Nita will be retiring. Her last day will be August 21st. Leading right up into the school year. She'll be getting things ready for the new director whenever we hire that person.
So that's a process that's going on right now is.
Yes.
For a director. There's a lot to be done there, so
That's a big role,
it's a big role.
big role to fill. Big shoes to fill. She's been a rock for many of us.
She is really a surprise. She's a beautiful spirit. She's just a huge gift to this town and the community. So yes, we're gonna celebrate her again. I will invite you. I'm gonna write a note. DJ, will you help me remember to invite them to the?
All right, our last item before we'll talk about scheduling a next meeting and adjourn. Any comments for the public? I know very patiently sitting here.
You touched on them all or answered them all, but I stayed because I just want to follow up on the MCI. It's of Jean Easterday and Easterday. Did I just say that was straight away? Oh, thank you. I'm glad you read that. Yeah, thank you. I knew that. And thank you. And so we'll talk about that later because I know you're working on a strategic. But the thing about MCI is I did attend all those sessions and housing very vocal. With good reason, right? But I didn't hear the rec center voice in there, and so I don't know what your priorities are for MCI. So I wrote them a couple of letters myself, like one was on the gym. Why would we not get rid of the gym? If we know we need another gym. And so I wrote them a letter on it, and I stopped copying you guys because I feel like I'm inundating you with letters, and I don't want to do that person, but I wanna know what you guys think about that, like, what does the rec commission or rec department think about like the gym there, or recreation there in general, because I think there's a lot we can do there from a cultural standpoint. But I don't wanna be pushing something if you are looking at a facility, right? I would like to support what you guys are thinking, because I think it's got the broader town perspective in mind, so. Just something to think about, I know it's late, so maybe we should talk about it another time, but I just didn't know. If you had an opinion, and we did mention that they have, are they reading it, I didn't refer to it.
So we did have a meeting with Spec MC just for recreation.
Yeah.
Right.
And so it was a closed door. I want you to know that we talked a lot about the gym. We saw some plans, actually both plans do have courts. I won't define if they're tennis or pickleball. We do know pickleball is great. And there's also open space, so recreation as in fields, maybe not soccer field. Although I think I did see one plan with the athletic field. I will say that housing is part of it, but that's part of the mandate of the state. Again, we don't own Concord MCI, and they have mandated that housing goes into it. I think there's a big debate right now of how much housing there is. They have asked for between 800 and 1,000. I think our thoughts are more like 300 to 600. I think, I'm not sure who's the one determining that, but just because we weren't out front, doesn't mean we didn't weigh in. I'm sorry, I thought you were there. We weighed in.
I did not know.
I will also say Chris Dempsey, I know him personally, we talked deeply about that and a lot of the plans that they have done in the past include a lot of greenery. And utilization space, so even though we may not, and I don't want to speak for the chair. Recreation is part of their plan development as a firm and also meeting the strong. So there is a gym, the question is, do we keep a gym that's old? Or take it down and still build a gym that's new, but that's a gym? So it's not necessarily if the gym is taken down, you could still put a gym, but I was like, why are we gonna spend so much money on a gym that may be like 60 years old? And we're trying to work around it to keep the gym opposed to like, all right, we're gonna create a new building with the gym in it where it was before. You maintain that.
Got it, okay, thank you, that's super helpful to have your perspective, because
Can I also say, yes, I think it's great.
I do, I never know what gets forwarded, sometimes.
Yeah, no, I think
Don't get forwarded, and I feel like I'm.
to have community activists are strong, that's great.
Yeah, right, well, thank you.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you.
So our last agenda is to talk about a next meeting. We've always had a hard time getting a full quorum in the summer months of August. On the flip side, we have held meetings during the daytime at White Pond, which is quite kind of nice. If we can find, so I would propose if we can do a doodle poll that we can get a quorum of people in August, we should do it, but if we have less than the full group, we may take a sort of lighter agenda and then we should target September for really more diving in deep conversations about sustainability model, strategic plan, Giro, those kinds of conversations that we have. So if you could send out a doodle poll for August and September, if we can get everybody in August, that's great. Maybe we'll have the conversation about a chair and that sort of thing then. I suspect it'll be hard, but if we do
Do
that,
we have a schedule in July or?
we don't have anything scheduled.
I would just say like, this is a great meeting. It is 2.5 hours. We're coming up, so like that, and that's fine, but that's a lot to cover. So I'm everyone's busy, but I'm not busy for all of July. Right? So like, I wish I was, but if we could find a doodle poll that maybe grab more, like an hour and a half of really intense stuff opposed to like one meeting every 3 months as like 2.5 hours maybe.
Yeah.
I can try to include like a lot of different.
Yeah, it's speaking a
like,
lot, yeah.
I mean, if any of you off the top of your head right now know of like, I can't do Tuesdays just at all, or something like that, that I can just
It's helpful, yeah.
already eliminate from the list, cause I know right now kind of. Our sort of standing was at every second.
It's the second Thursday of the month.
Second Thursday.
That was what we did for the last year.
That's what we did, but I don't, maybe there's another.
And we have a new members too.
That's the ideal is
Candidly,
to try to
Thursday,
get.
tough day for.
Okay,
yeah.
In Lowell and like I'm
Yeah.
back.
I mean, for the last year, we did it, then we sort of always had summer, we'll have a fun meeting at White Pond, and then we'll kick back in September. July or August, whenever we can do it.
So knowing, I don't know, it's like maybe I'm just old and I have more flexibility. Is there a time that people could do during the day? And it sounds like you're extremely busy. I know that. So if that's not an option,
Yeah, I
take it
just-
off. Oh, yeah, sure. I did. Cool.
Yes,
So-
I gotta pay the bills.
I just- So, yeah.
Maybe a doodle poll for a July and August meeting. And this would be helpful. Send Maggie a note if there are blocks of time we know we're all not, say, I'm not gonna be in town
Yeah.
from such and such, and narrow it down to 1 or 2 weeks. Then we'll see if there's a doodle poll we can do in the summer. If not, we'll do a doodle poll for Labor Day is very late. It's like the 7th or 8th, so maybe like the 3rd week of September, get everybody get back in school, get started. Do a doodle poll for late 3rd or 4th week of September to do the next one.
Sure.
Does that make sense?
Good. Love it.
Oh, can you send it by? Can you pick a date you need it by so that they know they have to send it, the
Tomorrow.
information to? So you can create the doodle. What?
Send a note to Maggie M. Johnson. But yeah, by.
Tomorrow?
a note-
Yeah.
Big blocks of time we're out of town, so we know that we can eliminate huge blocks of time whenever.
In the next few business days, please.
Yeah.
How's that?
I'm gonna just tell you the week of July 27th.
Okay.
There you go.
There you go. Easy enough.
And
Awesome.
so that everyone does know, I mean, I know on September, was it 19th, we are having a community wellness fair.
Oh, that's the rescheduled one, right? Rescheduled.
That
Sorry.
we and all our partners are doing a free kind of wellness health fair.
Awesome.
Don't put it on that day.
But yeah,
Oh, it's a Saturday.
That's a Saturday.
Saturday.
It's for the full community. It's a partnership with the health department. I'll
just to
give you
put
an
it on
update.
all your calendars.
Yeah, cool.
It'll be on all of our social media, so you're probably already linked in.
Thank you all very much. Motion to adjourn.
Yeah.
Second.
Awesome.
All those in favor? Aye, thank you.